I opened my eyes to the sound of crying. A beautiful girl was kneeling in front of me, tears streaming down her face, begging me not to sell her to a brothel. That's when it hit me. I had transmigrated. In my past life, I was a legendary mercenary king who later built a massive business empire. But a sudden heart attack brought me here, into the body of a 19-year-old wastrel named Li Chun in the ancient Dian Empire. The original Li Chun was a real piece of work. His parents died when he was 17, and without anyone to guide him, he turned into a drinking, gambling lowlife. 2 months ago, he found a starving refugee girl named Yu Qingwan. She was only 18. He planned to sell her to a brothel for quick money, but when she cleaned up, she turned out to be a beauty. So he made her his servant wife instead. But he couldn't perform in bed. The doctor said it was from too much drinking and exhaustion. That made him even more violent. Just moments before I arrived, he'd been dragging her toward the door to sell her off for drinking money. He tripped, hit his head on the doorframe, and that's when I took over. I looked at Qingwan. She held up 10 copper coins in her trembling hands, everything she'd earned washing clothes for others, and begged me to keep her. She even offered to let me beat her if it would make me feel better. She pulled off her shirt and lay over a broken stool, ready for the whip. Her back was covered in scars, old and new. Some were still bleeding. My heart ached. I threw the whip away and covered her up. The old Li Chun is gone, I told her. You won't see him again. She misunderstood and thought I meant I was leaving her for good. Tears poured down her face. But I shook my head and said simply, I'm not selling you. Then hunger hit me like a wave. I asked if there was any food, but there was nothing in the house. Qingwan rushed out to trade her copper coins for some rough flour from a neighbor. As she left, I thought about the world I'd landed in. The Dian Empire was 200 years old and falling apart. Barbarians attacked from the north and west. The land was full of corpses and starving refugees. The court was corrupt. The nobles had fled south, abandoning their own people. Families couldn't even manage one meal a day. Then I heard Qingwan scream outside. A local thug named Zhang who was trying to steal her flour and drag her away. He was the worst kind of bully in the village, and his brother was connected to a bandit gang. Even the old Li Chun had been afraid of him. But I wasn't the old Li Chun anymore. Zhang who? How dare you? I shouted, grabbing a short knife and rushing out despite my weak legs. He kicked at Qingwan. She closed her eyes, expecting the worst. But I stepped in front of her. I wasn't strong, but I stood there like a wall between her and harm. I stepped in front of Qingwan just as Zhang whose kick came flying at her. I caught his foot and threw him sideways. He landed in a painful split right on a rock. He cursed at me, but I didn't hesitate. I drove my knife into his right shoulder. Blood poured out. Get lost, I said. But the fool didn't run. He kept threatening me, saying he'd bring his brother's bandit friends to chop me up and do terrible things to Qingwan. That sealed his fate. I looked around, nobody in sight. My house sat at the far edge of the village, hidden behind a hillside. No witnesses. I thrust the knife into his throat and twisted. He died instantly. Qingwan screamed. I told her to go cook while I took care of the body. I dragged it to a nearby cliff and pushed it over. The wolves and vultures would handle the rest. By the time I got back, I was dizzy and starving. Qingwan was making food, her hands shaking like crazy. I washed up and sat down. Have you ever seen someone killed before? I asked her. She said she had, during her days as a refugee, but she was worried the authorities might come after us. I told her nobody saw anything, and in times like these, the government doesn't care. I also explained that Zhang Hu's brother Zhang Guang had ties to the Black Wind bandits. If Zhang Hu had lived, he would have come back with a gang to destroy us. Killing him was the only option. What if they find out? She asked, trembling. Then I'll kill more of them, I said calmly. While she cooked, I thought about my future in this world. In my past life, I'd been a mercenary king, then a business tycoon. But even with all that money, I still had to bow to people with real power. Money wasn't enough. Military strength wasn't enough. Only true authority, the power to rule, mattered. This time around, I would climb to the very top. Dinner was a pot of wild vegetable porridge with a little coarse flour. That was everything we had. Salt was government-controlled and expensive, so Qingwan only added a few grains. The porridge tasted bitter and rough, but I'd eaten far worse as a mercenary. Bugs, grubs, whatever kept me alive. Still, we couldn't survive on this forever. I needed a plan. I looked out at Taibai Mountain. It was vast, full of game. Hunting would keep us fed and help me rebuild my strength. Once I was stronger, I could think bigger. After eating, I went into the West Room, my father's old carpentry workshop. Inside a long box, I found a bow with the string removed and 10 arrows coated in tung oil, all well preserved. I restrung the bow and walked outside. That's when I noticed Qingwan by the stove, scraping the last bits of flour from the pot with her finger and licking it clean. I realized I'd eaten almost all the porridge myself. She'd barely had anything. I sighed and stepped out, holding up the bow. I'm going to take a few shots to test this, I told her. She didn't see the bow in my hands. She only heard me say I wanted to shoot a few and try it out. Her face turned bright red. She stammered nervously, saying it was still daylight and maybe we should wait. Daylight is better, I said, confused. Can't see anything in the dark. Her face went even redder. She thought I was talking about something else entirely. Without a word of protest, she quietly turned around, closed the door, and started undressing. I had no idea what just happened. What are you doing? I asked, stunned. Qingwan had taken off all her clothes. She thought when I said I wanted to shoot a few, I meant something completely different. When I held up the bow and explained, she let out a tiny squeak and crouched down, covering her face with her hands. I picked up her clothes, draped them over her, and walked outside. My heart was racing, but I kept myself together. Standing in the yard, I looked down and noticed my body was responding just fine. Seemed like the old Li Chen's problem didn't carry over after my transmigration. Maybe I'd test that theory tonight. I shook the thought away and focused on the bow. It was a straight-pull composite bow, good craftsmanship, but average power. My father had made it for a hunter in the next village, but the man got killed by a wild boar before he could pick it up. In my past life, I was a master of both guns and bows. I'd survived deadly situations in jungles using nothing but handmade bows when my ammo ran out. I set up a wooden target against a tree and took aim. The moment I focused, something incredible happened. The target seemed to zoom in, like looking through a scope. This kind of hyperfocus was something only 1 in 10,000 snipers could achieve, and in my old life it took me at least 10 seconds to enter that state. Here, it happened instantly. 20 paces, bullseye. I sprinted back 10 more paces, spun around, and fired. 30 paces, hit. Rolled on the ground, drew and fired. 40 paces, hit again. Every time, I slipped into that perfect focus state instantly. Beyond 40 paces, though, the bow just didn't have enough power. Qingwan was leaning against the doorframe watching, her cheeks still pink. Just then, a bird flew overhead. I knocked an arrow, drew, and fired in one smooth motion. The bird dropped out of the sky. I handed it to her. Cook it and eat. I'm heading into the mountains. She stared at me in disbelief. You're giving me your bird? I nearly tripped. Yes, eat the bird. It's yours, I said and walked off. It was already mid-afternoon, so I had to move fast or I'd be stuck on the mountain overnight. Near the village entrance, a few women carrying baskets of wild vegetables spotted me with the bow. Li Chun is going hunting, one of them laughed. Don't let a bear lick that pretty face of yours, another one. A bold woman named Ma Yin offered to trade me meat buns for any game I caught, pushing out her chest with a grin. Most of the village men had been drafted to fight at the northern border, so the women left behind were restless and forward. They all thought I was a joke, the neighborhood troublemaker trying to play hunter. I ignored them and kept walking. Behind me, I heard them chattering. He beats his wife, but thinks he can hunt. There are bears and wild boars up there, even a tiger recently. He's walking to his death. Only the village chief's wife, Lu Jinsui, spoke up for me. Leave him alone. He's not bad at heart. Half an hour later, I was deep in the mountains. Those 5 full draw shots in the yard had drained me badly. My hands were still shaking. But slowly, I started to recover. The back mountain had become dangerous in recent years. Too many wild beasts had killed off most of the hunters, and the rest got drafted to fight at the northern border. That meant the animals had multiplied like crazy. Game was everywhere. After crossing a ridge, I spotted a gray rabbit standing on a hillside, looking around. My survival instincts kicked in. A rabbit on high ground means a burrow nearby. I circled behind it and found the hole. I hid behind a tree, drew my bow, and the moment it reached the entrance, I let the arrow fly, pinned it to the ground. After that, I went on a rampage. With my instant hyper-focus ability, nothing that entered my sight survived. Rabbits on the ground, squirrels in the trees, birds in the sky. Over the next 2 hours, I fired more than 20 arrows and filled an entire sack with game. On my way back, I passed a huge pine tree and stopped. Something had ground a deep pit into the trunk, half as tall as a man, with pine sap still oozing out. I crouched down and checked the tracks. A wild boar, and a massive one, maybe 400 or 500 pounds. It had been rubbing pine oil into its hide for armor against parasites. With that kind of natural coating, even a shotgun would struggle to punch through. If I'd run into that thing today with my weak body and basic hunting bow, I'd probably be dead. I got moving fast. By evening, I reached the village. The big elm tree at the entrance had been stripped of bark and leaves. People had eaten them. A group of women sat beneath it, sorting wild vegetables and gossiping. One of them spotted me. "Isn't that Li Chun? Back already?" Wang Kaifeng snorted. "Probably caught nothing." Ma Yin laughed too. "Real hunters stay out for days. He left at noon and he's back before dark?" But Lu Jinsue, the village chief's wife, squinted at me. "Wait, he's actually carrying something," Ma Yin scoffed. "If that bum caught anything real, I'll feed him my buns right here." Then I got close enough for them to see clearly. 2 fat gray rabbits hung from my left shoulder, 6 or 7 pounds each. My sack was bulging, with feathers poking out. Every woman stared. A few swallowed hard. I stopped in front of Lu Jinsue and pulled out a pine grouse. "Auntie Sue, thank you for giving my wife those flower buns when we had nothing. Please take this." She panicked and waved her hands. No, that's too valuable. In times like these, with famine spreading and refugees starving to death by the roadside, a 3-pound bird could save a life. "There'll be more," I said, and set it down. She picked it up, then turned to Ma Lian with a sly look. "So, Lian, you going to keep your promise?" The women burst out laughing. Ma Lian's eyes locked onto my game with hunger. She pushed out her chest and offered to trade her buns for a grouse, adding with a mocking grin that I probably couldn't handle it anyway. The other women joined in, laughing and teasing, saying they'd all trade if I was up for it. I narrowed my eyes. My gaze went ice cold, the kind of look that could freeze blood. "You want to eat? Go hunt it yourself." My cold glare swept across those women, and every single one of them froze. They couldn't move, couldn't speak, like they'd been dunked in ice water. By the time they snapped out of it, I was already gone. That was strange. It seemed like my mental power had been enhanced after transmigrating. My gaze alone could paralyze people. A bit mystical, but I filed it away for later. I rounded the hill path and saw my broken-down little house in the distance. Shabby as it was, the sight of it brought me comfort. A tiny oil lamp glowed inside. In this chaotic world, home was the only light in the darkness. Qingwan was crouched by the door, chin resting in her hands, eyes closed, head bobbing, half asleep but still waiting for me. Even in her sleep, her brows were pinched with worry. She sensed me and opened her eyes. "You're back," she cried, jumping up. I reached toward her face. She flinched, thinking I was going to hit her. "I'm sorry, I dozed off," she stammered. I just plucked a tiny feather off her cheek and blew it away. "Let's go inside." She'd lit the lamp because the killing at our doorstep had scared her. Oil was a luxury. People barely used it for cooking, let alone lighting. She was terrified I'd beat her for wasting it. "It's fine," I said. "Light it whenever you want." I even turned up the wick so the whole room brightened. She crept over holding the roasted bird from earlier, the one I'd shot in the yard, and told her to eat. She hadn't touched it. She'd been waiting for me. I looked at the bird, then dropped the 2 fat rabbits off my shoulder. Then I emptied my sack, 2 pine grouse, over a dozen large birds, and 5 mountain mice. Qingwan knelt on the floor, touching each one, eyes glistening. "Stew that one," I said, pointing to a grouse. "Right now?" Her eyes went wide with disbelief. "Right now." She jumped up to start cooking, then paused and pushed the roasted bird into my hands. "You must be starving. Eat this first." I tore it in half, bit into my piece, and handed the rest to her. "You eat too." She grabbed it and ran outside with the grouse in her other hand, stuffing the bird into her mouth as she went. I tied up the rabbits and lowered them into the well to keep fresh. Rabbit meat tastes fine, but has almost no fat, useless for rebuilding my body. I planned to sell them in town tomorrow for grain instead. Rice and flour would last longer and give me the energy I needed to get strong again. I needed to bulk up, feed Qingwan properly, and then, well, verify that everything was working. Settle into married life for real. Soon the stew was ready. Just a simple boiled grouse. But Qingwan had bravely thrown in a few extra grains of coarse salt. I watched her do it, eyes squeezed shut like she was committing a crime. The salt was rough, full of impurities, and bitter. I remembered how awful it tasted in the morning porridge. This era probably hadn't developed refined salt yet. Even if it existed, only the wealthy elite could afford it. Something to think about. When the lid came off, the smell of meat filled the room. Qingwan looked like she might cry from happiness. She loaded my bowl with both legs, both wings, and big chunks of meat. Then she took a small bowl with just broth and scraps and went to crouch by the doorstep. Women don't eat at the table. That was the rule here. I looked at my overflowing bowl, then at her crouched in the corner. Come sit at the table, I said. I can't. She shook her head frantically. Come here. Now. She obeyed, but barely perched on the edge of the stool. From now on, in this house, men and women eat together at the same table. When we have children, it'll be the same. She trembled at those words. When we have children. Her face turned red, her hands shook, and her heart was clearly racing. She was wondering if tonight was the night. What's wrong with you? I asked, noticing Qingwan acting strange. I'll do whatever you say, she whispered, burying her face in her bowl. I had no idea what was going through her head. I just piled chicken legs and wings into her bowl. You're too thin. You need to eat more. She tried to refuse, but I insisted. She bit into a drumstick, and tears started rolling down her cheeks into her soup. Why are you crying again? I asked. I'm just so happy, she sobbed. You're so good to me. We're husband and wife. We should take care of each other. Stop crying and eat. I gave her another leg. She shook her head. I raised my eyebrow. She quickly changed her mind. Yes, I want it. The way she said it made my heart skip. I definitely needed to get my strength back soon. In the lamplight, she was truly beautiful. Whatever else the old Li Qin got wrong, he had a good eye for women, finding this gem among thousands of refugees. I noticed she'd quoted a famous poem earlier when I shot that bird. You've read books? I asked. She told me her father had hired a tutor for her when she was young. Her family had been wealthy in Lianjing before the northern barbarians destroyed the city. They fled south, but western raiders cut them off, so they went north instead. One by one, her family died or was captured. By the time she reached the northern pass, she was alone. I sighed inside. In peaceful times, she'd be reading poetry in a comfortable study right now. Your name? Qingwan. It's from the Book of Songs, isn't it? I said. Her eyes lit up. She was surprised I knew. I mumbled something about attending school for a few years, though really, it was knowledge from my past life. She told me she'd actually chosen the name herself from the classics, replacing the childhood name her father gave her. I recited the verse her name came from. A beauty there is, clear and graceful. We met by chance. How it pleased my heart. She continued the next lines without missing a beat, then looked up at me, delighted. Her husband could actually appreciate poetry? Too bad we have no wine, I said. Husband and wife reciting poems over drinks. That would be something. The heart is our cup, poetry our wine. Laughter cures all sorrow, she replied softly. Heaven is husband, earth is wife. Let's share one big blanket, I teased. Her eyes went wide and she ducked her head, blushing furiously. I laughed. In hard times like these, even a moment of joy was precious. Looking at her in the lamplight, something stirred in me. I stood up, swept her into my arms, and carried her toward the bed. It was time to find out if everything truly worked. The lamp, it's still lit, she gasped, covering her face. Can't see in the dark? I laughed. What followed was quite the experience. And it turned out everything worked perfectly fine. What I didn't know was that Ma Lian, the bold woman from the village, had snuck over to our yard that night, hoping to steal some game while we slept. Instead, she peeked over the wall and saw our shadows through the window paper. She watched for half an hour, frozen in place, biting her lip. At one point I sensed something outside and looked up. She bolted. I stared into the darkness for a moment, then shrugged it off and went back to what I was doing. Ma Lian went home but couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned all night, and when she finally drifted off, she mumbled in her dreams, Li Chun. How impressive, after everything. Qingwan fell fast asleep. There were still tear marks on her cheeks. I felt a bit guilty. Even though I tried to be gentle, it was still her first time. I let her rest and went to the workshop with a lamp. A hunting bow alone wasn't enough. I decided to build a crossbow as a backup weapon. In my past life, I had master's degrees in mechanical engineering and chemistry. My parents had been scientists who were killed for refusing to make biological weapons. That's what drove me to become a mercenary. And the old Li Chin's father had beaten woodworking skills into him for 10 years. Between my two lives, making a crossbow was no problem. I worked on some parts, then went to bed. I'd finish it over time. I woke at dawn, just like always. Years of mercenary habits die hard. I strapped on some makeshift sand weights and ran 5 kilometers around the mountain paths. Then I found a thick branch for pull-ups, 10 sets of 10. Back in the yard, 500 push-ups, 100 crunches holding a 30-pound rock, 100 overhead presses with a 50-pound stone. By the end, I was completely spent. My body was still too weak from long-term hunger. I couldn't push harder without risking injury. I needed more nutrition first. Then I'd increase the load in a few days. In this brutal world, strength was survival. Qingwan had breakfast ready, stir-fried mountain mouse strips with wild onions, plus 2 stewed birds. She didn't want to cook so much at once, thought it was wasteful, but I made her do it. After my training, I was starving and devoured most of it. I noticed she'd finished eating with just half a bowl of broth and scraps. I grabbed her bowl, went to the pot, scooped out a full portion of meat, and set it in front of her. "I'm already full," she started. "Eat. But you need more. You're the one hunting. Eat." She went quiet and ate with her head down. Tears dripped into her bowl again, but she hid them from me. Somehow the food mixed with tears still tasted good to her. After eating, color returned to her pale face. She looked almost radiant. I caught myself staring. "Clean up. We're going to town," I said, turning away. I pulled the rabbits and leftover game from the well where I'd hung them overnight to keep cool. I told Qingwan we'd sell the rabbits for grain. "And we'll get some cloth to make you proper clothes." Her eyes went wide with shock. New clothes was beyond anything she'd imagined. As we left, she locked the broken door with a rusty old lock and hung the key around her neck on a string, patting it gently. "Why bother locking up?" I asked. "There's nothing worth stealing. It still needs to be locked," she said softly. "Why?" She lowered her head. "When it's locked, it's a home." That word hit me harder than I expected. I stood there for a moment, then turned and softened my voice. "Let's go." She followed behind me with her little basket, taking quick small steps. As we rounded the hill toward the village, I saw a huge crowd gathered by the old elm tree. Over 100 people, mostly women, with about 30 men. The men were either old, disabled, or teenage boys. They carried bows, cleavers, and spears. The women buzzed around them like boiling water. "If that little troublemaker can hunt, you definitely can. Go early, come back early. The children want meat." I understood immediately. Those gossiping women from yesterday had gone home and convinced every available man in the village to go hunting today. "Where are you two headed?" Lu Jinsui called out with a smile when she saw us passing the crowd. Standing next to her was a girl about Qingwan's age, the village chief's daughter, Su Xiu'er. She was tall, only half a head shorter than me, with bold features and a striking figure. Even in famine times, she had curves that would make any man look twice. She stared right at me with her big clear eyes. I glanced at her without lingering. "Going to town to sell game," I said. That half-second of zero attention made Xiu'er bite her lip with a strange look of frustration. Wang Kaifeng eyed my rabbits jealously. "Just wait till our men come back from the mountain. The whole village will have meat." I ignored her, said goodbye to Lu Jinsui, and kept walking. Qingwan grabbed the corner of my shirt and shuffled along beside me. Behind us, women started whispering. "Why is that girl walking so funny? She's all wobbly. Is she showing off because she ate meat?" Then Ma Lian jumped in with a sly grin. "Oh, she ate meat all right, but the humankind nearly choked on it too. That Li Chun is something fierce." She told them everything she'd seen through our window last night. The women erupted. "He's a beast. That poor little wife." Ma Lian, "Why don't you go help her out? Take some of the load. Maybe you're the one who wants to try." They cackled and stole glances at me, their eyes burning. Watching Qingwan waddle along, they were equal parts jealous and envious. A husband who could hunt and perform like that? Every woman there wished she were so lucky. Su Xiu'er, still unmarried at 18, listened in confusion. "What are you all talking about? What beast?" Lu Jinsui blushed and pulled her away. "You're not married yet. Stop asking." She scolded the other women for gossiping about a 19-year-old boy. Ma Lian laughed boldly. "He may be young, but certain parts of him definitely aren't. The wind carried all of this to our ears. I didn't care, but Qingwan's face was burning red. She bit her lip, remembering last night, and winced. Up ahead, two teenage boys were heading toward the mountain with hunting forks and cleavers. One of them, a big, sturdy kid, spotted me and shouted, "Brother Chun." They were Zhao Dashi and Ho Xiaobai, childhood friends of mine, both 17. Despite their parents warning them to stay away from the old Li Chun, they still looked up to me as their leader. "You're amazing, Brother Chun. We could smell the meat cooking from your house last night," Xiaobai said, eyes full of admiration. I smiled and warned them to be careful. "There's a huge, armored wild boar up there. Pine oil all over its hide. It's dangerous." The women behind us immediately started heckling. "Oh, scaring people now? If there's a boar, how come you went up there? Don't listen to him. Boys, he just doesn't want competition." Dashi and Xiaobai had no choice. Their families pushed them onward, and they headed up the mountain with the rest. I watched them go, frowned slightly, but said nothing. I turned and continued downhill. "They're so unfair," Qingwan whispered angrily, her small face flushed. "Unfairness is normal in this world," I said quietly. "People rarely have calm hearts. All you can do is keep your own conscience clear." She went silent, mulling over my words, and tripped on a stone. I caught her before she hit the ground. She lay in my arms, heart pounding, not from the fall, but from being held. Then I felt my body tense. On a small village path to our right, a man in his 30s was strolling toward us, hands tucked in his sleeves. "Zhangguang," Qingwan whispered, standing up stiffly. She recognized him, the older brother of the man I'd killed yesterday. "Ignore him. Keep walking," I said. But Zhangguang swaggered over, a club tucked in his belt. Well, Brother Chun. Taking your woman somewhere?" Qingwan clutched my shirt, her palms soaking with sweat. She knew this man had connections to the Black Wind bandits. He circled us, leering at Qingwan. "Looks like you've finally broken her in. She's prettier now, more womanly." He made disgusting gestures near her, sniffing the air like an animal. I checked our surroundings. Too many people watching. I swallowed my killing intent. "Say what you want or get out of the way." He blocked our path, cursing at me. "When did you learn to talk to me like that?" I looked down at him. He was a full head shorter than me, and let my eyes go cold. That strange power kicked in again. He froze completely, like he'd been thrown naked into a blizzard. He couldn't move a finger. "Move." I shoved him aside and walked on. 2 seconds later, he could move again. He charged after us, but stopped dead when I turned to look at him. "Did you see my brother Zhanghu yesterday?" he demanded, breathing hard. Qingwan's hand trembled against my back. "No," I said flatly. "Liar. He went to your house. Why would he come to my house?" He fumbled for an excuse. "He wanted to visit. Missed you. You believe that yourself?" I said, and walked away with Qingwan. Behind us, he shouted threats about skinning me alive if I'd done anything to his brother. I didn't turn around, but in my mind, I added his name to my kill list. Once we were far enough away, Qingwan asked in a shaking voice what we'd do if Zhangguang came after us. "Kill him," I said simply. We passed through the narrow mountain gap that served as the only land entrance to our village. I studied it with a soldier's eye: steep cliffs on 3 sides, river on the 4th, a single choke point barely 30 feet wide. Easy to defend, hard to attack. Good terrain. The road to Pingyang County was wide and smooth, about 6 miles. We made good time under the morning sun, but as we rounded the last bend before the city, our pace slowed. Spread across the flatland beside the road were hundreds of crude shelters made from branches and grass. Around them sat masses of people in rags, skins stretched over bones, hollow eyes, no energy left. Even the children lay curled up in their mothers' arms like wilted plants. Fresh graves dotted the fields behind them. Some still had wet dirt. Refugees. Driven north by the barbarian invasions, they'd crossed into the northern pass with no papers, no status, nothing. The local lord had ordered refugee camps outside every town, handing out just enough porridge to keep them barely alive. Qingwan said nothing. Her lips went white. 2 months ago, she'd been one of them. When they spotted us, especially the rabbits on my shoulder, every refugee sat up. Their clouded eyes lit up with raw hunger. They didn't see people anymore. They only saw meat. "Let's move faster," Qingwan whispered, tugging my sleeve in fear. Some of the stronger ones were already standing, making strange grunting sounds, shuffling toward us. I grabbed my bow, ready to make an example of anyone who charged at us. But just then, patrol cavalry thundered in. The refugees shrank back in terror. Those soldiers' blades had plenty of refugee blood on them already. "Sit down, you wretches. Anyone moves, we chop you to pieces," the lead soldier barked. We slipped past along the far side of the road. Qingwan was sweating, from the sun or the fear, I couldn't tell. Inside the city, things looked almost normal. Shops, street vendors, taverns, even a brothel with colored banners. It felt like peacetime, but only because the northern pass still held. I found a restaurant that specialized in wild game and sold everything. Business was good for me. With most hunters drafted to the front, the restaurant owners were desperate for supply. I got 3 strings of coins for everything. The 2 rabbits fetched 1.5 strings, and the 5 large birds another 1.5. Qingwan was thrilled. She counted the money over and over, tucked it carefully in her basket under a cloth, and hugged it tight. I couldn't help but smile. We bought a wheelbarrow, then I went on a shopping spree. 2 bags of rough rice, a bag of flour, piles of radishes and cabbage. Then I noticed a salt shop and stopped. Salt was government-controlled here. Only crude, bitter salt was available to common people. Refined salt was reserved for the elite and nearly impossible to get. But I knew how to purify salt. If I could produce refined salt easily, I'd make a fortune. And in this chaotic world, money and grain came before power. I bought 5 pounds of coarse salt for 500 coins. As we walked on, I felt it, someone tailing us. At a street corner, I glanced back. Zhang Guang and 2 men were following us through the crowd, hatred burning in his eyes. I stayed calm. I bought Qingwan a cup of cold tea at a stall and told her I needed to go back to buy some hunting gear. She sat and waited, quietly sneaking 100 coins into a hidden pocket in her underclothes. Not stealing, just worried about my spending habits. Meanwhile, I deliberately led Zhang Guang through back streets into an abandoned courtyard. No windows, no neighbors, no witnesses. I stood there and waited. The 3 of them walked in. Zhang Guang froze when he saw me standing casually, clearly expecting them. He looked around nervously. Was it a trap? But seeing my skinny frame against his 3 burly men with knives, his confidence returned. "We meet again, Brother Chun," he said with a cold smile. "You've been following me. What do you want? Where's my brother? What happened to him?" His 2 thugs drew their daggers and closed in. "He stole my food and harassed my wife," I said flatly. "So I killed him." Zhang Guang's face twisted with shock and rage. He hadn't actually believed I was capable of murder. He'd just been using his missing brother as an excuse to rob me. But now I'd confessed it straight to his face. "Get him. Kill him. Avenge my brother," Zhang Guang screamed, eyes bloodshot. His 2 men lunged at me. I flicked my wrist and sent my short knife spinning into the right one's chest, straight through the heart. He dropped without a sound. The left one rushed in, but the moment his eyes met mine, that freezing power hit him. He locked up for just a second. That was all I needed. I drove my knee into his groin and smashed my elbow into his temple. His skull cracked. He was dead before he hit the ground. I kicked up his fallen dagger and charged at Zhang Guang. He stumbled backward, tripped, and landed flat on his back. I stomped on his chest and pinned him down. "Brother, it's a misunderstanding. I'll pay you, don't kill me," he begged. "Too late. Kill me and Black Wind Fort will destroy you. Die." I drove the blade into his heart. Clean, precise, instant. I searched all 3 bodies. Found 700 coins, several sharp daggers, and a portrait of a beautiful young woman I didn't recognize. It seemed Zhang Guang had actually come to town to scout kidnapping targets for the bandits, not specifically to track me. Either way, it didn't matter. Killing him was the right call. Whether he lived or died, Black Wind Fort would eventually come looking. At least now I'd bought myself time to prepare. I wasn't worried about the law. These men were unregistered outlaws. If anyone found the bodies, they'd be buried as dead refugees. Nobody would investigate. I stopped at an arrow shop and bought a bundle of quality arrowheads, bowstrings, and a damaged infantry bow I could repair. Then I picked up something else, a pink jacket and blue trousers for Qingwan. 300 coins for the set. Back at the tea stall, I handed her the paper bag. She opened it and gasped. This must have been so expensive. 300 coins. Nothing. She covered her mouth. 300 coins could feed a family for a month. When we have more money, I'll buy you silk, I said. Her eyes turned red. Let's go home. She hugged the package against her chest the entire walk back. peeking inside every few minutes with the happiest smile I'd seen on her face. It warmed something in me. We passed the refugee camp again on the way. Xingwan grabbed my sleeve and buried her face, too afraid to look. The patrol soldiers were still around and had just handed out porridge, so nothing happened. At home, I sat down exhausted. Xingwan wanted to fetch water, but I handed her the clothes first. Put them on. Let me see. But I still have chores. Now. She ran inside and came back a few minutes later, fidgeting nervously. In the warm noon sunlight, she looked like a blooming flower. The pink jacket brought color to her face, and she was stunning. Beautiful, I said. She ducked her head, blushing, but I could see the secret joy in her eyes. She grabbed a worn-out fan for me and said she'd go dig up some wild onions and garlic nearby for cooking. I told her not to go far and to stay safe. As she left, I noticed her pause at the gate to straighten her new clothes before stepping out with a spring in her step. I watched Xingwan leave, then grabbed a machete and headed to the nearby hills. I chopped firewood plus some jujube wood, birch, and thin poplar sticks for projects I had in mind. Half an hour later, I came back. I'd barely wiped my sweat when I heard scrambling footsteps outside. Xingwan ran in crying, clutching her shirt. What happened? Nothing, she said, frantically covering the bottom of her jacket. I pulled her hands away. The new pink jacket, the one I'd just bought her, had a long slash cut through it. She dropped to the ground, grabbed the whipping cane, and held it out to me with shaking hands. I'm sorry. I ripped it. Please hit me. I took the cane but just leaned on it. Who did this? She was too scared to answer, shaking her head and sobbing. Tell me. Now, Zhou Jiao, the daughter from the Zhou family. She touched my clothes, said they were pretty, then pretended to accidentally cut them with her vegetable knife. Xingwan stared at the ruined fabric and couldn't stop crying. I'll deal with it. I grabbed the cane and headed out. Please don't, Xingwan called after me. It's just girl stuff. You're my wife. Anyone who bothers you answers to me. Outside, the group of women were walking back from gathering wild vegetables. I spotted Zhou Jiao immediately, a stocky girl about Xingwan's age. She saw me coming and tried to run, but I cut her off in 3 strides. The village chief's daughter Su Xiu'er spoke up in Xingwan's defense. Xiaofeng, you were wrong. You were jealous and cut her clothes on purpose. You should apologize, several other girls agreed, saying Xingwan had been so happy about her new clothes and Zhou Jiao had ruined them deliberately. But Zhou Jiao puffed up defiantly. I already said sorry. What more do you want? A grown man bullying a girl. Have you no shame? I didn't waste words. I brought the cane down hard on her leg. Apologize, she screamed and started wailing, calling for everyone to come see a man hitting a woman. Man or woman, do something wrong and you get punished. I whipped her 3 or 4 more times until she crumpled to the ground, crying. Anyone else who messes with my wife gets the same, I said, scanning the crowd. Every woman looked down. Su Xiu'er stared at me with a complicated expression, part admiration, part jealousy. She'd grown up with the old Li Chen always chasing after her. Now he wouldn't even glance her way, yet he'd fight the whole village for his little servant wife. Then Zhou Jiao's mother, Wang Kaifeng, came charging in. You hit my daughter? I'll kill you. I turned and locked eyes with her. That freezing power hit instantly. She stopped dead, unable to move a muscle. By the time she could move again, Xingwan and I were already back inside our yard. She ground her teeth but didn't dare follow. Just wait till your father gets back from hunting, she hissed to her daughter. Back home, I sat down to catch my breath. That test with Wang Kaifeng confirmed it again. Whenever I fixed someone with a hard stare, they'd freeze for a couple of seconds. Definitely a real ability. Xingwan's mood completely turned around. She buzzed around the house, suddenly remembering to bring me water, then a fan. Then she knelt down offering to massage my legs. I'm fine. My legs don't hurt, I said, standing up. Come on. I'm going to teach you how to make refined salt. Refined salt? Xingwan looked confused. I told her to boil water and dissolve all 5 pounds of coarse salt. After boiling it twice and filtering out the visible impurities, I poured the brine into a large clay basin. My family tried this in Lianjing, Xingwan said carefully. It didn't work very well. I'm not done, I smiled. I filled another basin with clean water, then scooped a big shovel of wood ash from the stove and dumped it in. Xingwan's eyes went wide. After stirring and letting it settle, I skimmed off the clear liquid on top and poured it straight into the salt water. She nearly screamed. She thought I'd ruined everything. But instead of making the brine dirty, a chemical reaction happened. The impurities clumped together and sank to the bottom, leaving crystal clear salt water on top. I had her bring a clean cloth, stretched it over the pot, and slowly poured the brine through it. The cloth caught the last of the dark residue. Then I boiled the filtered brine down until only white powder remained. When Qingwan came back from washing the cloth, she found me holding a bowl of fine white salt, pure as snow. She pinched a tiny bit and tasted it. Her eyes went huge. "This is the best salt I've ever had. Almost as good as what they serve at the imperial court." I tried some too. It was decent, though far from modern standards. The ratio of ash to brine needed work, and there were better purification methods I could try later. But for now, this was good enough to sell. 5 pounds of coarse salt only yielded about 1 pound of refined salt, so I'd need to price it well. I noticed Qingwan staring at me like I'd performed a miracle. "Listen carefully," I said in a serious tone. "This is our family secret. We'll make money from this. Never tell anyone. Ever." She nodded solemnly. Not a soul would hear it from her. "Use this salt for dinner," I said. She cooked up a storm: stewed bird soup, steamed rough rice, stir-fried cabbage with chili and vinegar. She used the new salt, wincing as she measured out half a spoonful like it was gold dust. While she cooked, I sat in the yard drinking water and happened to glance over. Her back was turned to me. The straight legs, the curves, the slim waist. She was more beautiful than I'd realized. Something stirred in me. I stood up and walked over. "Almost ready," she said, thinking I was impatient for food. "Forget the food. I want you." I took the spatula from her hand, swept her up by the waist, and carried her inside. "But it's only mid-afternoon," she protested, face bright red. But her arms were already wrapped around my neck. Yesterday, she would have been terrified. Today, she closed her eyes and leaned in, clumsy but willing, even happy. Afterward, we finally ate. The sunlight poured through the window onto her flushed, glowing face. She looked breathtaking. With the refined salt, even simple food tasted incredible. Qingwan ate a whole big bowl and hiccuped several times. The thought that she'd have good salt for the rest of her life nearly made her cry with joy. After the meal, she mended the torn jacket while I went to the workshop. I had things to prepare. I started by sharpening wooden sticks, over a dozen of them, each pointed at both ends like spears, sharp enough to kill. After sharpening those wooden stakes, I built 2 simple crossbow launchers using birch and jujube wood, my father's old bowstrings, and the parts I'd been working on. They were crude, but with my modern design knowledge, they could punch through a human body at 20 paces. Then I went outside and dug 3 pit traps around the yard, lining the bottoms with the sharpened stakes. I told Qingwan they were for wild animals that might wander down from the mountain. The truth was, killing Zhongguang would bring the Black Wind bandits sooner or later, and I needed to be ready. I carefully positioned the pits using psychological profiling. No matter which direction someone jumped over our wall, they'd have to cross at least one trap. Inside, I rigged the 2 mini crossbows to the door and window with tripwires. Anyone breaking in would get a bolt through the chest. Next came the real project. I took that damaged Northern Barbarian war bow I'd bought from the arrow shop. It was a recurved design, short but incredibly powerful, with an effective range of 60 paces, far superior to my hunting bow. I repaired the damage, then spent the entire evening converting it into a compound pulley crossbow. I added 2 eccentric wheels and secondary strings. The pulleys made it effortless to draw. I could do it one-handed. The effective range jumped to over 100 paces with devastating power. I even added a 10-arrow magazine underneath with a bamboo spring auto-feed mechanism. Every time I recocked, the next arrow popped into place automatically. A semi-automatic cold weapon, centuries ahead of its time. Combined with my instant focus sniper ability, this crossbow made me unbeatable within 100 paces. I could face a tiger, an armored boar, or a bear head-on. The next morning, after training, I packed both weapons, the compound crossbow wrapped in cloth on my back, the hunting bow on my shoulder. I warned Qingwan to stay around other people while I was gone, and to sleep at Auntie Sue's house if I wasn't back by nightfall. At the village entrance, Lu Jinsue greeted me warmly. Su Shoer suggested I join the village hunters nearby. They'd found some small boars and I could share the meat. Wang Kaifeng and her daughter Zhou Jiao immediately objected. Why should he get any? Let him hunt his own. Zhou Jiao even threatened to have her father beat me up when he returned. I ignored them and headed uphill. As I walked, I worried about those villagers. Their crude weapons might handle piglets, but if they ran into that armored boar I'd seen signs of, they'd be slaughtered. About 15 minutes later, I heard it, screaming, crashing trees, and the furious shrieking of a massive boar. "Run! A huge boar!" someone wailed. I rushed toward the noise. Through the dust and chaos, I saw people pouring out of the tree line 100 paces ahead, pure terror on their faces. Someone had dropped a net containing 2 small piglets. They'd caught the babies and brought the mother, the armored one. Didn't listen to my warning, and now this, I muttered. Behind the fleeing villagers, heavy hoofbeats thundered like war drums. People were screaming. I ripped the cloth cover off my new crossbow, loaded it, and took aim. A massive boar exploded out of the tree line, smashing through branches like they were twigs. It was enormous, thick pine oil armor coating its body, blood-red eyes, razor tusks. This was the one I'd been worried about. Right in front of it, a skinny boy was sprinting for his life. I recognized him. Ho Xiaobai, my childhood friend. "Xiaobai, get down," I roared. He dropped flat, just as the boar lowered its head to gore him. That gave me a clear shot. I entered that instant focus state. 100 paces away, the boar's forehead filled my vision like it was right in front of me. I squeezed the trigger. The bolt crossed the distance in a blink and punched straight into the boar's skull, burying halfway in. The beast shrieked, veered sideways, carved a trench in the dirt, and collapsed. I reloaded and advanced carefully. "Xiaobai, you okay?" I'm fine," he stammered, shaking on the ground. Zhao Dashi ran over to help him up. "Stay back. It might not be dead," I shouted. But a limping man, Zhou, a village elder, charged in with a hunting fork, cursing at the boar. He stabbed at its neck. Bad move. The boar surged back to life, swinging its tusks right against his chest. One more inch, and he'd be impaled. I fired again. The bolt entered through the boar's right eye and came out the other side. It dropped for good. Zhou opened his eyes and saw the arrow sticking through the boar's skull. He looked at me, then tried to kneel. I caught him. We're neighbors. Helping each other is what we do. The villagers gathered around, still shaking. They'd seen everything. 2 shots from nearly 200 paces, one through the forehead, one through the eye. They called me an arrow god, said I was better than legendary military marksman. If Li Chun hadn't shown up, who knows how many of us would have died, Xiaobai said, eyes wet. Suddenly, I went from the village troublemaker to a hero. Everyone crowded around me, clapping my shoulders, praising me. Village chief Su Jiang took charge, organizing the wounded and declaring that the boar belonged to me. I'd killed it, so it was my property. He asked if anyone disagreed. "Of course not," they shouted. "He saved our lives." "Wait," I said. "I don't agree." Everyone went silent, staring at me in confusion. "Li Chun, what do you mean?" the village chief asked. "The boar belongs to the whole village," I said. "You all drove it out. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time." Village chief Su Jiang shook his head firmly. "Don't be modest. We all saw those 2 shots, 180 paces, one through the forehead, one through the eye. That's not luck. And we were the idiots who caught the piglets and brought the mother down on ourselves. You could have killed this boar alone. It's yours." The villagers all agreed loudly. Nobody wanted to claim my kill. Since they insisted, I accepted, but only so I could do what I wanted with it. "Fine, it's mine. Then I'm giving it to the village. Divide it by household. All I want are the bones." Stunned silence. This boar would sell for 40 or 50 strings of coins in town, and I was giving it away for free, keeping only the bones. Su Jiang's eyes went red. He turned to the crowd. "You all know what kind of year it's been: drought, famine, war. How long since any of you tasted meat? Li Chun gives us this whole boar and only asks for the bones. If anyone disrespects him after today, they answer to me." The lame man Zhou Dahai, whose life I'd saved, was the first to back him up. Everyone else followed. Before leaving, I pulled Su Jiang aside. "Uncle Su, I'm almost 20. If word gets out about my archery, they'll draft me to the Northern Front. So please, tell everyone to say I got lucky with a blind shot." He laughed, patted my shoulder, and made the announcement. The villagers played along immediately, joking about my wild, lucky shots. They understood, and they'd keep quiet. I pulled my arrows from the boar and headed back up the mountain to hunt. Down below, the women were waiting. When they saw the men carrying that enormous boar down the hill, everyone went wild. It's huge. Must be 500 pounds, Wang Kaifeng shouted. Zhou Jiao licked her lips. Meet tonight, but Wang Kaifeng had other business. She grabbed her husband Zhou Dahai and told him Li Chun had beaten their daughter with a cane, demanding he go settle the score. Why would Li Chun do that? Zhou Dahai frowned. He's not that kind of person. Su Xiu'er spoke up from the side, explaining that Zhou Jiao had deliberately cut Qingwan's new clothes and refused to apologize. Is that true? Zhou Dahai's face went dark. Daddy, I didn't mean to. But he hit me. You have to beat him up, Zhou Jiao whined, clinging to his arm. A thunderous slap knocked her to the ground. You have the nerve to ask me to fight Li Chun? Zhou Dahai roared, grabbing a branch and whipping her. That man just saved my life. He killed the boar. And you're out here doing petty, shameful things? Wang Kaifeng tried to stop him, but he shoved her aside and kept going, cursing and beating until his daughter's wails echoed down the entire mountain road. I didn't know what happened down in the village after I left. I headed deeper into the mountains, but today's hunting was strangely poor. Besides a dozen birds and a nest of 5 wild chickens, I barely found anything. No rabbits, no ground game. It was like the animals had vanished overnight. Then I heard it. A deep, short tiger roar that cut off abruptly, like something had clamped its throat shut. That explained the missing game. A tiger had moved into the area. I had my crossbow, but I wasn't eager to fight a tiger. They're pure muscle, incredibly strong, and can take enormous punishment. I turned to head back down. Then came another short roar, followed by a high-pitched shriek, like a giant cat screaming. A leopard? The sounds were close, maybe 200 or 300 paces away. I heard heavy fighting. I decided to risk a look. If 2 predators were tearing each other apart, maybe I could pick up the scraps. I crept through the dense forest with my crossbow ready. When I pushed through the last branches, I saw it. A huge black leopard had its jaws locked around a golden tiger's throat. The tiger kicked a few times, convulsed, and went still. The leopard had won. That should have been impossible, but when I looked closer at the tiger, I understood. It was emaciated, covered in old festering wounds, fur falling off in patches. Its tongue was black, poison, probably a venomous snake bite that never healed. Weakened by toxin and injuries, it couldn't fight off the leopard. The leopard sensed me and looked up, eyes blazing. It released the tiger and launched itself at me. 2 enormous leaps covering 30 feet, then a third that brought it within 5 meters, claws extended, murder in its green pupils. I didn't flinch. I looked straight into its eyes and unleashed my mental pressure. The leopard seized up midair, frozen for just a fraction of a second. That was enough. I fired. The bolt punched through its throat and out the back of its neck. It crashed to the ground thrashing. I walked up and put a second bolt through its skull. My intimidation power worked on animals too. Good to know. Then I heard a strange quacking sound from a nearby bush. I grabbed my hunting bow and crept over, expecting some bird. Instead, I found a newborn tiger cub, eyes still sealed shut, crawling blindly and mewing like a duck. Now it all made sense. The dead tiger was a mother who'd just given birth. Poisoned, wounded, and exhausted from delivery, she'd been ambushed by the leopard, probably one she'd driven off before, coming back for revenge or territory. I picked up the little cub, a male, strong and healthy. He licked my fingers. All right, little guy, you're coming home with me. I cleaned him off, tucked him into a cloth bag against my chest, and built a drag sled for the leopard. The leopard alone was worth 50 or 60 strings of coins, but I wasn't going to sell it. Dragging a leopard through town would attract too much attention. Better to eat the meat, boil the bones for soup, and make Qingwan a fur cloak from the skin. The tiger carcass I left behind. Its poisoned flesh and ruined hide were worthless. I dragged the leopard back to the village as evening fell. Every house had its lamps lit, and the smell of cooking pork filled the air, my boar being enjoyed by every family. It felt almost like a festival. My stomach growled. But as I approached my house, I saw a crowd gathered at my front gate. Someone appeared to be kneeling, and I could hear angry shouting. When I reached my gate, I found Zhou Jiao kneeling there with a slab of meat balanced on her head, crying. Her father Zhou Dahai stood over her with a switch, whipping her and scolding. You'll kneel here until Li Chun comes home and forgives you. Wang Kaifeng stood nearby, weeping but too afraid to intervene. Qingwan was at the door, gently trying to convince Zhou Dahai to stop. But he wouldn't budge. I had to admit, this Zhou Dahai was a man of real character. When people spotted me coming, they rushed over. Then they saw what I was dragging, and the screaming started. A leopard. That's a leopard. My young followers, Zhao Dashi, Ho Xiaobai, and a boy named Lu Qinshu, stared at me like I was a god descended from heaven. Brother Chun, you killed a leopard? Dashi's voice was shaking. I nodded. I didn't hide it. If word spread that I could kill leopards, it would make troublemakers think twice before coming after me. The villagers looked at me with a mixture of awe and fear. People had heard of tiger kills, but nobody had ever heard of someone killing a leopard. They were faster and craftier than tigers. Zhou Dahai rushed over, handed me his switch, and begged me to beat his daughter as punishment. His eyes were red. You saved my life, and my family repaid you with insults. I can't live with that. Hit her, as hard as you want. I had no choice but to take the switch. I walked over to Zhou Jiao. She was trembling, eyes shut. Brother Chen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did to Qingwan. Hit me. And please take this meat. Dad says we don't deserve to eat it. Qingwan was crying beside her, soft-hearted as always. I raised the switch high. Wang Kaifeng turned away, unable to watch. Zhou Jiao clenched her teeth. I brought it down, and just lightly tapped her back. I tossed the switch away and smiled at Zhou Dahai. Done. She's forgiven. I pulled Zhou Jiao to her feet and brushed the dust off her clothes. We're all neighbors. Just be good to Qingwan from now on. She tried to shove the meat into my hands. I could see her swallow hard as she held it out. She wanted that meat badly. Keep it. We have plenty, I said, gesturing at the leopard in my bag of game. Zhou Dahai limped over, eyes glistening. Wang Kaifeng tried to stuff the meat into my arms, apologizing over and over. But I refused again. We're all village people. Teeth bump against tongues sometimes. It's fine. Go home and enjoy your dinner. Zhou Dahai gave me a thumbs up. You're a real man, Li Chun. I won't forget this. All three of them bowed deeply, then hurried home to cook their meat. Then Xiao Bai came over shyly, carrying a bundle of about 20 arrow shafts on his back. Brother Chen, my mom said I owe you my life. I don't have much, but I made these arrow shafts to sell at the shop in town. They're yours now. I hope they're good enough. I picked up one of Xiao Bai's arrow shafts and examined it. Impressive work. Birch wood, perfectly straight, good weight, properly dried, with goose feather fletching glued on expertly. His father had been a skilled carpenter before being drafted, and Xiao Bai had surpassed him. Even my father had once said Xiao Bai would become the best craftsman in the village. Instead of just taking the arrows, I pulled out the bag of iron arrowheads I'd bought in town. Xiao Bai, I need someone to attach these to shafts. Help me make proper arrows. Consider it a favor. His face lit up. He was happy to have a way to repay me. Then Dashi stepped forward with a knife his blacksmith father had spent half a year forging. Dad says a hunter needs a proper blade. I drew it and flicked the steel. The ring was dull, mediocre quality. But the thought behind it mattered. The knives I'd taken from Zhang Guang's men were even worse. This era's metalworking was clearly behind. If I ever found the time, I could probably forge something far better myself. Lu Qinshu, the bookish one of the group, shuffled up blushing, clutching a few old books. I don't have anything valuable. Just these. His father had been a scholar who died without ever passing the imperial exams. Qinshu was one of the few literate boys in the village, but too poor to continue studying. He lived alone with his little sister. Books are the greatest treasure there is, I said, taking them with a smile. He looked relieved. He knew I was being kind. Xiao Bai crouched next to my crossbow, running his hands over it in awe. How is this thing so powerful? I explained the pulley system. 2 wheels that reduce the draw weight while increasing power and range. Then Dashi fidgeted nervously. Brother Chun, can we ask you something? All 3 of them stared at me with desperate hope in their eyes. We want you to teach us. Hunting, fighting, everything. We want to be your students. They offered to swear oaths, serve tea, do anything I asked. I considered it. Having a few capable followers would be valuable. Money, food, and loyal brothers. That's what you needed to build something in this world. You really want to learn? Of course, Dashi blurted. We can hunt for our families, and the girls will notice us too. Brother Chun, you should hear how the women talked about you today. They all want to marry you. Qinshu smacked him and glanced nervously at Qingwan. Dashi slapped his own mouth. Sorry, no filter. I laughed it off. Tomorrow morning, after the 3rd rooster crow, meet me at my gate. I'll train you. They tried to kneel in a formal master-disciple ceremony. I stepped aside and refused. We're brothers, not master and student. Just learn well, and always remember me as your brother Chen. That's enough. Chinchu understood first. You'll always be our brother Chun. The other two caught on and swore loyalty. Then Chinchu, the most level-headed, noticed it was getting late and ushered them away. Once everyone was gone, I checked the yard. Nobody had stumbled into my pit traps, thankfully. I made a mental note to lay the stakes flat during the day and stand them up again each night. Husband, Qingwan's voice called from inside. Hungry? Dinner's ready, Qingwan said, setting the table. She'd heard everything outside. The boar, the leopard, the village's admiration. Before she could say more, I placed a fuzzy little bundle in her arms. For you, a kitten, she asked, delighted. Tiger cub, a what? She nearly dropped it. I caught the little guy just in time. I explained, it was a newborn, eyes still closed. When it opens its eyes, whoever it sees first becomes its parent. She cautiously poked its belly with one finger. The cub squirmed and let out a quack. Why does it sound like a duck? She almost laughed. They all do when they're small. Wait till it grows up. I told her the whole story, the poison mother tiger, the leopard fight, the kill. When she heard the cub's mother had died, her eyes went red. I knew she was thinking of her own lost family. I patted her arm gently. Don't dwell on the past. Don't worry about the future. Just remember, you'll always have someone beside you. She threw herself into my arms, holding the cub in one hand and gripping my waist with the other, sobbing freely. She wasn't afraid of me anymore. I laid out the day's haul. 5 wild chickens and over 30 birds, plus the leopard. I decided not to sell the leopard. Too much attention. We'd eat the meat and I'd tan the hide to make Qingwan a fur coat for winter. You don't like it? I asked when her eyes got watery again. No, you're just too good to me, she cried. Later, I found a nursing dog in the village and traded 2 small chickens for it to feed the tiger cub. The family was thrilled. Those chickens could buy grain for days. That night, after setting up the indoor defenses, we went to bed. Qingwan had already fallen in love with the cub, clutching it like a stuffed toy. But when I lay down, she tucked the cub into its little grass nest on the floor and slipped under my blanket. If you're tired, I can take care of you, she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. She was getting bolder. I smiled in the dark. The next morning, I woke up fresh as ever. Qingwan's legs were wobbly, but her face was glowing and her eyes had a new spark. At dawn, Dashi, Xiaobai, and Chinchu showed up at my gate as promised. They found me and Qingwan boiling crushed pig bones into a thick, rich broth. Brother Chen, why are you cooking bones? Don't you have meat? I can bring some, Dashi blurted out. Bone broth builds strength, I said. You'll each drink a bowl when we get back. I strapped on my sand weights. Let's go. 10-mile run up the mountain first. Without endurance, nothing else matters. After the run, I had them do 10 sets of pull-ups on tree branches, 10 reps each, just my normal daily routine. They had no idea this wasn't hunter training. It was basic special forces conditioning from my past life. After nearly 2 hours of training, I was impressed. These boys had serious potential, maybe from years of climbing mountains daily, or maybe just natural talent. The mountain paths were brutal, but they completed everything. The 10-mile run, 100 pull-ups, 500 push-ups. Even Chinchu, the skinny bookish one, gritted his teeth and pushed through every rep. His willpower was remarkable. The weighted exercises separated them. Chinchu and Xiaobai couldn't handle the full 30 and 50-pound stones, needing 10 pounds less. But they still finished and collapsed on the ground. Dashi, though, that kid was a monster. He complained the 50-pound stone was too light and swapped it for an 80-pounder. He could probably handle 100. I'd always known he was strong, but this was something else. Next, I had them try the crossbow. 20 paces, 3 arrows each. Xiaobai hit the bullseye with all 3. First time shooting. At 40 paces, he still hit the target every time. At 50, he started drifting but still put 2 on target. In my old mercenary unit, he'd have been pulled straight into sniper training. Chinchu was solid. All 3 on target at 20 paces, decent at 30. Above average. Dashi couldn't hit anything. The other 2 laughed at him mercilessly. Brother Chun, this is impossible. Teach me something else, he begged, face red. Don't rush it. Basics first. Now come eat. Their jaws dropped. I was training them and feeding them. In these times, feeding growing boys was no small thing. Qingwan served steaming bowls of rough rice with thick bone broth and pickled radish. They ate like they'd never seen food before. Qinshu suddenly paused mid-bite. Brother Chun, what kind of salt is this? There's no bitterness at all. I refine it myself, I said casually. They stared at me like I'd grown a second head. Hunting, fighting, killing leopards, and now salt making? I told them my plan. Sell the refined salt to the city's salt shop and hire them to help. Work when there's work, hunt when there's not. You won't need to farm anymore. They tried to refuse payment, but I waved it off. We'd sort that out later. Then Xingwan walked in carrying the tiger cub. They thought it was a kitten until I told them the truth. Their eyes nearly popped out. I explained how I'd found it, and they crowded around the cub and the dead leopard in the yard, barely able to contain themselves. A boar, a leopard, and a pet tiger. Dashi was practically spinning in circles. When this thing grows up and you walk it around town, people are going to faint. Qinshu smacked him with chopsticks for swearing. After the meal, I asked if they had energy left. Are we going hunting? Qinshu asked, eyes lighting up. Sharp kid. He had a commander's instincts, always reading the situation. Yes, but once we're up there, you follow my orders exactly. Don't scare off the game. All three of them could barely contain their excitement. I gave the crossbow to Xiao Bai, the hunting knife to Qinshu, and loaded Dashi up with rope, a short spear, and a machete for clearing paths. Then we headed into the mountains. With the tiger and leopard both dead, the animals had returned. Along the way, I gave the boys a demonstration of what real marksmanship looked like. Everything that moved, flying, sitting, running, I dropped it with the hunting bow. Never missed once. When they tried, it was a different story. Xiaobai managed 1 rabbit out of 5 shots. Qinshu missed everything and spent half an hour looking for his arrows. Dashi just gave up entirely. We pushed deep into the mountains, eating steamed buns along the way. Dashi earned his keep by hacking a trail through the brush with his machete. That kid's strength was endless. Then I heard something. I raised my fist. They all dropped flat, just like I'd taught them. We crawled through the undergrowth and saw it. A clearing with over a dozen deer of all sizes, grazing peacefully. If we bag a few big ones, we're rich, Dashi whispered, licking his lips. 5 or 6, easy, Xiaobai added. No, I said quietly. We take them all. Alive. They thought I was crazy. I turned to Qinshu. If you wanted to capture every deer here, what would you do? He studied the terrain for a moment. Mountain wall on the left, open on 3 sides. He proposed having himself and Dashi come from the west and north to spook the herd south, while Xiaobai and I waited in ambush to pick them off in sequence. Surround 3 sides, leave one open, set layered ambushes, I nodded. Good tactical thinking. But I want them alive. I laid out my plan. They listened with wide eyes, barely believing it could work. We split up. Qinshu and Xiaobai burst from the west and north simultaneously, screaming to panic the herd. The deer bolted south, led by the biggest stag, straight into the trip lines I'd set at grass height across their escape route. The stag went down hard. 3 large does crashed into the rope right behind it. 4 or 5 more piled up on top of them. The few that dodged sideways ran right past my hiding spot. I rose up and opened fire, 1 crossbow bolt through a deer's hind leg. Then I switched to the hunting bow. 6 arrows in rapid succession, each one piercing a front or back leg, dropping them without killing them. Dashi was already charging into the tangle of fallen deer, tying the dazed stag's legs with rope. His strength made it a one-man job. Then he moved to the next one. Qinshu and Xiaobai arrived to help bind the rest. But 2 uninjured deer scrambled to their feet. I reloaded the crossbow. 2 quick shots, 2 more deer down with leg wounds. Brother Chun is incredible, they screamed, pumping their fists. Every single deer captured alive. If we brought them home and bred them, we'd have a renewable food source for generations. We got all the deer tied up. I gave orders. Pull the arrows from the wounded ones, bandage them, strap them to drag poles. The healthy ones got roped together by the neck in a line. Dashi would lead the big stag at the front and the rest would follow. The stag tried to resist. Dashi punched it in the face until it forgot what rebellion meant. After that, it walked wherever he pulled it. By late afternoon, we came out of the mountains. The whole village lost their minds. 13 deer. Alive. Is Li Chun a mountain god? If he breeds them, the herd doubles in 2 years. 2 men actually started fighting over whose daughter should be offered to me as a wife. Or even a concubine, just so their family could eat deer meat. It got so heated that other villagers had to pull them apart, while watching us parade through with the herd. Dashi, Xiaobai, and Qinshu walked with their chins held high. For these teenage boys, this was the proudest moment of their lives. Qingwan was shocked when we arrived. Yesterday a boar, a leopard, and a tiger cub. Today a whole deer herd. She probably wondered if I'd bring home a dragon tomorrow. No hunting tomorrow, I said. We build a deer pen under the cliff. We split the day's smaller game. 8 grouse, for rabbits, about 20 birds. 1 grouse and 1 rabbit each for the boys. They refused the birds no matter how hard I pushed. I also offered them each a deer, but they wanted to leave them all here for breeding. I understood their real feelings. They didn't want to take too much, but I had plans for later. Qingwan cooked up a grouse stew with the refined salt and steamed rice. The boys ate until their clothes were soaked with sweat. Afterward, we herded the deer behind the house and tied them to trees under the cliff with fresh grass and water. By the time everything was done, it was fully dark. Qingwan came to me holding the tiger cub, pouting. He peed on my clothes. Can I smack him? She'd changed so much in just a few days. Braver, more open, even playful. She could feel that I was genuinely kind to her now. Discipline him when he misbehaves. He'll learn, I said. She flicked the cub's forehead gently. Bad boy, little gold. The cub quacked in protest and pawed at his head. She burst out laughing. Watching this warm little scene, I felt something soft inside me. Then my gaze shifted to Qingwan and turned decidedly less soft. She knew exactly what I was thinking. She lowered her head, cheeks pink, pretending to play with the cub. I went outside, set all the traps and defenses, came back in, locked the door, blew out the lamp, and scooped her up. We fell asleep some time later. But less than an hour into my sleep, an alarm went off inside me. That old mercenary instinct screaming danger. I snapped awake instantly. From somewhere down the mountain, I caught the faint sound of horses. Then silence. But the feeling of danger didn't fade. It grew stronger. I sat bolt upright. Qingwan stirred awake. Need the chamber pot. Enemies coming. Night raid. Take the cub, get in the cellar, lock it from inside. Don't come out until I call you. She grabbed the tiger cub and scrambled down. I snatched my hunting bow, short knife, arrow quiver, and crossbow, then vaulted over the yard wall and hid in the grass 30 paces away. Down the mountain, I could make out a group dismounting from horses. One horse had a woman in pink clothes tied to its back. The men wore black masks, eyes glinting in the moonlight. I heard fragments of their talk. They'd figured out that Zhang Guang and his men had likely died at my hands. Their second-in-command had come personally, dismissing me as a simple farmer. He left 1 man to guard the horses and the captive woman, and led 8 men up the hill with drawn swords. My night vision, sharpened from my past life and now even stronger, let me see clearly for 60 paces in the faint moonlight. I watched 8 figures creep up toward my yard. I stood silently, chose the hunting bow over the crossbow for its speed. The nursing dog sensed them first and started barking. Damn, a dog! Move faster, the leader hissed. 5 jumped the side walls. 3 came through the front gate. 3, 2, 1. 3 screams erupted simultaneously. The ones who jumped the walls had landed in my pit traps, impaled on the sharpened stakes. I rose and fired 3 arrows in rapid succession. All 3 men at the front gate dropped with arrows through their hearts. 1 man who'd avoided the pits tried to scramble back over the wall. The dog clamped onto his leg, slowing him just enough. He made it over, but I was already 10 paces in front of him. 1 crossbow bolt pinned his thigh to the wall. He slid down onto his own fallen sword, which went straight through his neck. Dead. I cursed. I wanted to question him. The last one had panicked and run inside the house, triggering my indoor crossbow trap. Bolt through the chest. Dead. 8 men. All dead. Not a single one left alive to interrogate. I checked everybody. The pit trap victims were skewered through. The others had arrows in their hearts. I could guess they were Black Wind Fort bandits here for revenge, but I had no confirmation. Then I remembered, the horses. Someone must be guarding them below. I masked my face with cloth, grabbed both weapons, and slipped into the darkness. 15 minutes later, I reached a dense grove near the village edge. 5 horses stood there. My eyes lit up. Horses were incredibly valuable in this empire. The military desperately needed cavalry, but could never breed enough. The government even allowed civilians to raise horses, but supply was always short. And these bandits had just delivered 5 horses right to me. I noticed the pink-clad woman still tied to one horse. But strangely, I couldn't spot a guard anywhere. That felt wrong. Why leave horses and a prisoner unattended? I waited and watched from the grass, but nobody appeared. I decided to move in. I approached cautiously with my crossbow ready. The woman tied to the horse was young and beautiful, gagged and bound, kicking her legs in panic. I'm not a bandit. I happened to pass by. I'll free you, but stay quiet. Tell me what happened. Are there more of them? The moment I cut her gag, she screamed, "Behind you!" Watch out, my danger instinct fired. I spun and pulled the trigger. A bandit 3 paces away crumpled with a bolt through his chest. He was holding a sword in one hand and half his pants in the other. He'd been relieving himself in the woods and missed my approach entirely. Pure bad luck that I hadn't spotted him earlier. So much for capturing a live prisoner. Again, I cut the woman's ropes. She bowed gracefully. My name is Zhang Yuer. I'll never forget your kindness. She hesitated on her own name. Her eyes were too sharp, too calculating for someone who'd just been kidnapped. She was lying about her identity, and doing it well, but not well enough to fool someone like me. Years of reading people in life-or-death situations made her act transparent. I asked where she lived. She gave a smooth answer about fleeing from Liangjing to Pingyang County. Too polished. Rehearsed, not spontaneous. Who took you? Why? I don't know. I was done wasting time. Fine. Goodbye. I turned to take the horses. She panicked. Wait. It's the middle of the night. I can't go back to the city alone. Please escort me. I'll reward you generously. No thanks. I mounted a horse and rode off. She hiked up her skirt and chased me, tripped, and face-planted into the grass. She sat up spitting out leaves, glaring at me with a mix of shame and fury. You're selfish and rude. I'm a helpless woman in the middle of nowhere at night, and you won't even help me? You didn't even come help me up when I fell. I stopped my horse. I saved your life. You lied to my face about everything. Why should I help more? She fired back without missing a beat. Maybe I was working with the bandits. Maybe it was a trick. How was she supposed to trust a masked stranger in the dark? She was mouthy and clever, watching me the whole time with those sharp eyes, sizing me up. I rubbed my forehead. Fine. If I left her here, she might follow me back to the village and figure out who I was. Better to just deliver her to the city and be done with it. I tied the other horses to a tree, walked one over to her. Get on. I'll take you back. She lit up but couldn't mount the horse to save her life. After watching her fail 3 times, I put my hand on her lower back and boosted her up. She went bright red at the touch. As we rode, I laid out my terms. I don't want anyone knowing who I am or where I came from. If anyone asks, tell them the bandits were ambushed by someone else. They scattered, and you escaped in the confusion. Then you ran into me on the road. Understood? Fine, fine. Zhang Yuer agreed to my terms. Then she bit her lip. But at least let me see your face. You saved my life. I want to remember you. No, you coward. You must be ugly. That's why you're hiding. I grabbed her collar like I was about to throw her off the horse. She immediately flattened against the horse's neck. Okay. I won't look. I'll shut up. Then I spotted torchlight ahead. 20-some people on horses and foot, heading our way. Looks like your rescue party, I said. When she saw who it was, her eyes turned cold and sharp. A completely different person from the chatty girl who'd been annoying me seconds ago. They surrounded us. A man at the front raised a blade and shouted, "Unhand my niece, you bandit!" But I caught something in his eyes, not just anger, but suspicion, resentment, even hostility toward his own niece. Something was off about this, uncle. Second uncle, stop. He's my savior, Zhang Yuer snapped at him. The uncle's face flickered with shock and something like frustration before he plastered on a smile. Of course. As long as you're safe, dear niece. I set her down, gave a quick salute, and rode away without a backward glance. But I didn't actually leave. I circled back through the darkness and hid in the grass to watch. What I saw confirmed my suspicions. Zhang Yuer suddenly mounted a horse with perfect ease. Nothing like the clumsy girl who couldn't climb up earlier. That had been an act. She confronted her uncle with ice in her voice. You were really worried about me, dear uncle? He sobbed theatrically about how scared he'd been, babbling about not being able to read or manage accounts, and what would happen to the family business if something happened to her. She cut him off with a cold snort. How thoughtful of you. The sarcasm dripped from every word. Neither of them was simple. The uncle clearly had motives against her. and Zhang Yuer was far sharper and more dangerous than she'd let on with me. I pulled out the portrait I'd taken from Zhang Guang's body. The woman in the drawing was unmistakably Zhang Yuer. So the Black Wind bandits had been hired to kidnap her specifically. Zhang Guang had been scouting her in town that day, not following me. My killing him just happened to delay their plan. I tore the portrait to shreds and let the wind carry it away. Whatever was going on between Zhang Yuer and her uncle was none of my business. If anyone came looking for me over this, I'd make them regret it. Back home, I cleaned up all the bodies and blood under the moonlight, keeping the weapons and the 50 taels of silver I found on them, 40 from the one who looked like the leader. I knocked on the cellar hatch with our agreed signal. Qingwan was sitting there obediently, clutching the tiger cub in one arm and a small bag of copper coins in the other. I couldn't help but smile. Even hiding from killers, she'd grabbed the money first. When Qingwan saw me, she burst into tears with relief. She'd heard the fighting and screaming from the cellar and had been terrified the whole time. I kept it brief. I killed Zhang Guang in town 2 days ago. Tonight, Black Wind Fort sent bandits for revenge. I killed them all. She went white. But I assured her they wouldn't be coming back anytime soon. We collapsed into bed, exhausted. In the middle of the night, Qingwan sat bolt upright, crying and flailing her arms. Let go of my husband. Let him go. I held her and patted her back until she woke up. She'd dreamed the bandits captured me. I told her dreams mean the opposite, but privately I made a decision. I needed to wipe out Black Wind Fort completely. Living in constant fear wasn't sustainable. The next morning, I stepped outside and froze. Over 50 kids were crowded at my gate, every child in the village between 12 and 18. They'd heard about my training sessions and wanted in. Too many. Go home, I said flatly. Their faces fell, but I walked past them and took my 3 brothers up the mountain. When Dashi asked why I'd turned them away, I explained that this kind of intense training requires proper nutrition. Without enough food, these already weak kids would get hurt, not stronger. I knew Brother Chen wasn't being selfish. Dashi grinned. Training went well. I estimated I'd recovered about half my former strength. At this pace, in 6 months I'd be back to 80% or more. Over breakfast, I casually asked how they'd slept last night, checking whether anyone had heard the fighting. Best sleep of my life, Dashi said through a mouthful of chicken and rice. Hit the bed and went out cold, the others agreed. I relaxed. I tried teaching them some knife fighting after the meal, but the blade snapped after a few blocks. The steel in this era was terrible, either too brittle or too soft. It made me want to forge my own weapons, but that meant building a proper furnace with refractory bricks. Not simple. Still, the idea wouldn't leave my head. I'd look into finding materials and skilled people in town. Later, I drew a bowl of blood from the big stag without harming it and divided it among everyone, including Qingwan. Fresh deer blood strengthens muscles and bones. Drink up. Nobody liked the taste. Qingwan's face scrunched up with every sip, but nobody dared refuse. Then Xiaobai brought over a bag, looking sheepish. Brother Chen, can you teach me how to build your crossbow? I tried copying it these past 2 nights. He opened the bag. Inside was a nearly complete replica of my compound crossbow, every single component accounted for. My jaw almost dropped. He'd only seen my crossbow a couple of times, and he'd reproduced every part from memory. The problem was he didn't understand the 3-string calibration principle, and his 2 eccentric wheels were mismatched. It would never fire accurately, but the fact that he'd gotten this far just by looking? That kind of intuition and craftsmanship was 1 in 10,000. I didn't tell Xiaobai what was wrong with his crossbow right away. I wanted to test my brother's loyalty a bit longer before sharing all my secrets. I'll teach you when there's time, I said. I assigned everyone tasks. Xiaobai helped Qingwan tan the leopard skin, while Dashi and Qinshu came with me to build the deer pen. I also told Qinshu to bring his 12-year-old sister Qinyi over to help with cooking. The kid was smart enough to realize I was really just giving her a way to eat proper meals, and his eyes got misty with gratitude. We started mixing grass into mud for dry stack walls. Before long, village chief Su Jiang came by with Zhou Dahai and some others. He'd even gone to town and gotten me an official hunter's license and badge. Now I could legally buy weapons and hunt openly. I hadn't even thought of that. Just the 4 of you building this? You'll be here forever. Come on, boys, let's help, Su Jiang said. Then something amazing happened. Every villager who walked past on their way to the fields dropped their tools and pitched in without being asked. Within hours, Nearly every man in the village was there. By late morning, we had a massive deer pen, big enough for dozens of animals. I invited everyone to stay for lunch. 2 stewed grouse, a pot of fish, vegetables with plenty of meat, and 2 big jars of wine. Some of these men hadn't eaten meat or drunk alcohol in 2 years. A few looked close to tears. Little Chinny turned out to be a gem. Only 12, but an expert cook, quick on her feet, and sweet-tongued. She called Qingwan sister, so naturally that it melted her heart. Qingwan even shared her precious osmanthus candy with the girl. Lu Jinsue and Su Xiu'er came to help, and even Wang Kaifeng and Zhou Jiao showed up to work hard, refusing to let Qingwan lift a finger. Ma Lian arrived too, bringing wild fruit for Qingwan. Then Ma Lian noticed the marks on Qingwan's neck. What happened there? How'd you get those bruises? Qingwan's face turned scarlet. I bumped into the table corner. Must have hurt. And you keep bumping it every night? We can hear you crying out in pain from way over at my house. Poor little Qingwan. The women roared with laughter. Qingwan stammered that it really was just a table corner, happening to hit the same spot several days in a row. Ma Lian kept a straight face. Tell you what, tonight I'll sleep at your house and let that table corner bump into me instead. I'm tougher, I won't even cry. You just want to get bumped yourself, admit it, the women howled. Lu Jinsue rescued the mortified Qingwan, pulling her away and scolding the others. Leave her alone. When Wang Kaifeng and Zhou Jiao tried to sneak away before the meal, Qingwan chased them down and dragged them back. My husband sent me to get you. You worked all morning. You have to eat. Wang Caifeng's eyes went red. You two are such good people. We treated you so badly before. During the meal, I sat next to Dashi's father, the village blacksmith Zhao. I asked him about ironworking techniques. We just heat iron and hammer it, he said. Real smelting happens at big foundries with tall furnaces. They crush or fill the furnace and burn with charcoal. Takes forever and uses mountains of charcoal. Wood charcoal? I asked, surprised. Nothing else? What else would there be? So they hadn't discovered coal yet. That meant no advanced furnaces either. The entire empire's metallurgy was stuck in a primitive stage. This was both a problem and an enormous opportunity. I felt someone watching me and turned. Su Xiu'er was standing by the stove, staring at me with a water ladle in her hand. When our eyes met, she blushed and looked away, pouring water into a pot that was already overflowing. After the feast, everyone went home happy. It had been 2 years since most of them had tasted meat and wine. The meal cost nearly 10 taels of silver, which made Xiaobai cringe, but Qinshu put it well. It's called spending money to win hearts. Nothing is more valuable than people's loyalty, I agreed. When we can afford it, money is the least important thing. If it buys support and goodwill, that's the real treasure. I went inside to tell Qingwan I was heading to town. She was crouched in the back room counting coins with painful precision, the tiger cub dozing beside her. How much do we have left? I asked. 31 taels and 452 coins, she said without hesitation. A true treasurer. I asked for everything above 20 taels. She handed me 30 taels and kept only about 1,400 coins. When I raised an eyebrow, she blushed. A husband shouldn't have to keep asking his wife for money. It doesn't look manly. I laughed. Clever girl. I took 4 of the 5 bandit horses to sell, all geldings, obedient but unable to breed. I kept the youngest one for myself. On the road, a fancy horse carriage passed me. The curtain lifted, and there was Zhang Yu'er, the woman I'd rescued last night. She called herself Young Boss to her driver. So she ran a business. She spotted me and froze. Young sir, have we met before? Never, I said flatly. She stared at my eyes, clearly suspicious. Are you sure? Your eyes look so familiar. Positive. Good day. She let it go but ordered her driver to follow me. I ignored them. In town, I traded my game birds and rabbits at the restaurant for a 10-pound jug of grain liquor instead of cash. Then I went to the livestock market and swapped my 4 geldings for 4 young mares and 2 foals, plus a big iron-rimmed cart. My plan was the same as with the deer: breed and build a herd. 2 of the mares had just given birth and were still nursing, which meant milk for the tiger cub. He was going to outgrow one dog's milk supply fast. I stopped at a stationery shop and bought a stack of old waste paper. Not for writing, for the toilet. In this era, people used dirt clods and leaves. The wealthy used silk. I couldn't afford silk, but used paper was better than a communal bamboo scraper polished smooth by 1,000 backsides. As I was heading toward the salt shop to finally negotiate my refined salt deal, a familiar fragrance drifted over. Zhang Yuer had appeared beside me again. This time Zhang Yuer appeared alone. No carriage, no guards, just walking beside me and staring with those big, curious eyes. "What's your name?" she asked. "Strangers don't share names." "Where are you going?" "Strangers don't share plans." "Where do you live?" "Strangers don't share addresses." "I know," she cut in, fuming. "Is strangers the only word you know?" "I could also say passing acquaintances or ships in the night," I offered helpfully. "Are you playing word games with me?" Her cheeks puffed up with anger. "Stop following me. I'm not who you're looking for." "How do you know I'm looking for someone?" She pounced on my slip. "A blind man could see it," I said. Then we arrived at the salt shop, Lin Family Salt Company, with a big banner flying the name, Lin, overhead. I stopped my cart. She looked intrigued. "What business do you have at a salt shop?" Before I could enter, shouting erupted inside. A heavy-set middle-aged man was being shoved out by several young workers. I recognized him instantly. It was the uncle from last night's rescue. "You ungrateful worms. How dare you treat me this way?" he screamed. The lead worker, the same carriage driver from this morning, fired back. "Lin Yuexin, you're not the boss. The real owner is Lin Yufeng, and the young boss is Lin Linger. You're just a cousin who embezzled nearly 1,000 taels while managing the shop. Be grateful we didn't break your legs." Everything clicked. Zhang Yuer was a lie. Her real name was Lin Linger, and she was the owner of this very salt shop. Her father Lin Yufeng had gone missing, and the uncle, Lin Yuexin, had been running things and stealing money. The moment she got home after her rescue, she'd moved fast and ruthlessly, kicking him out and seizing back control. She'd even made sure the workers publicly announced his theft, destroying his reputation and securing the moral high ground. Sharp, decisive, and strategic. I had to admit I was impressed, even if she was a born liar. But something still didn't add up. A girl this calculating shouldn't have been captured by bandits so easily. Was it really just carelessness? Then Lin Yuexin spotted Lin Linger standing next to me. He exploded, pulling a letter from his pocket, waving it wildly. "Lin Linger, you heartless brat. I saved you from bandits 2 days ago, and now you throw me out? Your father left me a letter. This shop goes to me if anything happens to him. You're just a girl who'll marry off someday." "This is my shop now." A crowd gathered to watch the drama. Lin Linger's eyes flashed with anger, but then she glanced at me and something sly crossed her face. She grabbed my sleeve and put on a helpless expression. "My cruel uncle is trying to steal my family's business. Young sir, please save me." I stood there stunned. How did I just get dragged into this? I wanted to walk away, but I realized I was about to negotiate a salt deal with this very shop. If I ruined things with her now, the deal was dead. I exhaled slowly and turned to face Lin Yuexin. "What does that letter actually say? Who are you to question me?" "Get lost," Lin Yuexin barked, not recognizing me from last night since I'd been masked. Before he could react, I snatched the letter from his hand and read it quickly. He grabbed it back, but what he didn't notice was that I'd already swapped it with a piece of waste paper from my pocket. Nobody saw the switch. Not Lin Yuexin, not Lin Linger, not the crowd. "You said the letter leaves the shop to you," I said calmly. But that's not what I read. He started reciting the letter from memory, pretending to read it aloud. "You're holding it upside down," I pointed out. The crowd burst out laughing. He'd told his own niece he couldn't read. I'd heard him say it last night, so I'd set the trap perfectly. He flipped the paper and tried again, but I stopped him. "If you want anyone to believe you, get someone else to read it." A couple of local scholars volunteered eagerly. One opened the letter and started reading. "Lee Family Clinic, specializing in men's problems, particularly impotence." The crowd howled. Another scholar continued. 30 years of medical practice, treating women's menstrual disorders." It was the old medical advertisement printed on my waste toilet paper. Lin Yuexin's face went purple. "You switched my letter." Before I could respond, Lin Linger dropped her giggly act and turned ice cold. "Lin Yuexin, I trusted you, and you tried to steal my family's business while my father was gone. Throw this thief out." Her workers charged him with clubs, and he fled like a rat. "Thank you for saving me again," she said sweetly, looking up at me with knowing eyes. She was now certain I was her masked rescuer. "Once," I corrected. "Twice." "Once." She sighed and invited me inside. As we entered the shop, I noticed a round-faced clerk with beady eyes staring at me from behind the counter. When I looked back, he quickly dropped his gaze. I filed that away. In the back room, Lin Linger thanked me formally. I cut straight to business. I'm here to talk about a deal. Do you buy refined salt? Her face fell. She'd been hoping for something more personal. But the word, refined salt, snapped her back to attention. I handed her a small packet. She tasted a pinch and her eyes went wide. This is the quality only imperial officials and the wealthiest merchants can get. The supply is incredibly rare. It never reaches ordinary markets. Where did you get this? I made it myself. From the coarse salt I bought at your shop. She stared at me in disbelief. You made this? I did. After a long pause, she took a deep breath. How do you want to structure the deal? I buy coarse salt from you at cost. I refine it and sell it back to you at 5 taels per pound. She thought for a moment. 5 taels per pound. You'd actually be undercharging. Here's a better offer. Take the coarse salt for free. You make the refined salt, I sell it. We split the profits 50-50. You'll earn more than your 5 taels per pound. Deal? I was genuinely surprised. That kind of boldness was rare, especially from a young woman in this era. Whether it was gratitude for saving her or pure business instinct, this was a generous offer. You're not worried I'll take your salt and disappear. I trust my judgment about people, she said, looking straight into my eyes. She was more certain than ever that I was her rescuer. That's why she offered such generous terms. But even if I wasn't, the deal was structured so she couldn't lose. I thought about her 50-50 offer, but shook my head. I prefer guaranteed payment. 5 taels per pound of refined salt, paid directly. What you sell it for after that is your business. She looked annoyed, probably thought I was questioning her sincerity, but agreed. Give me 1,000 pounds of coarse salt. I'll deliver 200 pounds of refined salt in 3 days. Her eyes widened as she did the math instantly. 5 pounds of coarse salt for 1 pound of refined. Far better than the imperial method that needed nearly 10. At market prices of 10 taels per pound for refined salt, the profit margins were enormous. Deal, she said without hesitation. I pushed further. Can you also lend me 50 strings of coins for hiring workers and buying firewood? She didn't blink. She walked me to her round-faced clerk and ordered the money counted out. While the clerk counted coins, his eyes darted around suspiciously, watching me closely. What business is the young sir in? He asked casually. 1,000 pounds of coarse salt is quite a lot. Refining salt, I said. No point hiding it. His eyes flashed with interest before he masked it. A rare skill indeed. Where did you learn it? Family secret. When I was alone with Lin Linger outside, I leaned in. Your clerk seems untrustworthy. I only mention it because it could affect our business. Don't worry about him. He's very loyal, she said coolly. But I caught the sharp glint deep in her eyes. She already knew. Everything was under her control. Which made me wonder again. How had someone this shrewd gotten kidnapped by bandits? May I at least know your name? She asked as I prepared to leave. I can't do business with someone completely anonymous. Strangers who happen to meet. Get out, she slammed the door in my face. I shrugged and drove away with my 1,000 pounds of salt. What I didn't know was that she was watching me from her second-floor window. I sensed something and glanced up. She jerked sideways to hide and cracked her forehead on the window frame. Upstairs, she wasn't alone. A tall, wild-looking woman in green fighting clothes with a sharkskin knife at her hip was lounging on the bed, someone named Bai Yuxiang. First time I've seen you this crazy about a man, Bai Yuxiang teased. Is this the mysterious rescuer you went looking for in the countryside today? Lin Linger stomped her foot in embarrassment. Shoo! Keep your voice down, Bai Yuxiang whispered, suddenly serious. I'm a wanted bandit leader, remember? It turned out Bai Yuxiang was Lin Linger's close friend, a female outlaw who robbed corrupt rich people and terrorized local bandits. She'd come to borrow 100 taels because her gang was running low on funds. Business had been slow. She'd scared all the nearby bandits into hiding, and the wealthy had hired extra guards. 2 dangerous women, each playing their own game. I was glad I'd kept my identity hidden. What I didn't know was that Lin Linger and her friend Bai Yuxiang, a wanted female bandit leader, had actually planned the whole kidnapping incident together. Lin Linger had deliberately let herself be captured by Black Wind Fort, while Bai Yuxiang waited on the road to ambush the bandits and rescue her. That way, Lin Linger would have proof of her uncle's treachery and could eliminate both threats at once. But I'd accidentally ruined their plan by killing all the bandits first. Now Lin Linger was sending by Yuxiang to investigate my identity, while also planning to use our salt business as bait to lure Black Wind Fort into a trap. Meanwhile, I was in town spending freely. I loaded my cart with 1,000 pounds of grain, vegetables, arrows, eggs, meat, and 100 pounds of animal bones, spending nearly everything I had. On the road home, I sensed someone tailing me. I pushed the horses to full speed, blew past my village turnoff without stopping, rode 20 miles, cut through dense forest on hidden paths, and doubled back to the village. Whoever was following me was completely lost. It was by Yuxiang, stunned that she'd been shaken off. He's an expert at vanishing, she muttered in disbelief. When I finally reached the village, my blood ran cold. A crowd surrounded my deer pen. I heard crying. I pushed through and found Dashi, Xiaobai, and Qinshu all lying on the ground, covered in blood. Qingwan and little Qinyi were washing their wounds while Xiaobai's mother and Dashi's father wept over their sons. Village chief Su Jiang told me what happened. A gang of thugs from White Sand Village had come snooping around. When they saw the deer herd, the leopard skin, and Qingwan's beauty, they tried to steal everything and assault my wife. My brothers fought back against impossible odds. Xiaobai took a knife wound to his arm defending the deer. Dashi tackled the gang leader and held on even as the whole group beat him nearly to death. Qinshu clutched the leopard skin and wouldn't let go until they smashed a rock against his head. Qingwan and Qinyi had run for help. The thugs fled when they heard villagers were coming, but they took a young deer and the leopard skin with them. I checked each of my brothers. Xiaobai's cut was on soft tissue, painful but not dangerous. Dashi was beaten bloody, but no broken bones. Qinshu's head wound was bleeding heavily, but the skull seemed intact. They'd all survive. I stood up. My eyes went so cold that everyone who saw them shuddered. They'd beaten my brothers, stolen my property, tried to violate my wife. Uncle Su, take care of them. Have some men unload my cart. I'm going to settle this. I mounted a horse, turned it toward White Sand Village, and rode. I rode hard, ignoring Su Jiang's warnings about the thugs outnumbering me. After 15 minutes, I spotted them lounging in a grove, 7 men, laughing and fooling around. One was wearing my leopard skin like a costume. The stolen deer was tied to a tree nearby. No witnesses around. I dismounted 30 paces out, tied my horse, and walked straight toward them. One of them stood up, smirking. Well, if it isn't Brother Chun, come to get even? Just you alone? Just me? I said, raising my crossbow. One bolt through his throat. He crumpled. But that's enough. I reloaded. Another thug screamed that killing with a crossbow was a serious crime. You're right, I said, and put a bolt through his forehead. The rest panicked. These were street bullies, not fighters. They'd never seen real killing. They screamed and scattered in 4 directions. I dropped the crossbow, grabbed my hunting bow, and fired 4 arrows in quick succession. For men, for arrows through the back, for bodies on the ground. That left Wu Tian, the ringleader, standing frozen in my leopard skin, legs shaking, too terrified to run. I walked up to him. Take off my leopard skin. He obeyed instantly, begging for his life, claiming he'd been drunk. I grabbed his hair and pressed my blade against his neck. He screamed that his uncle worked for the county government and would come after me. I drove the knife into his throat and twisted. Then I pushed his body aside, dodging the spray of blood. 7 bodies. I threw them all off a nearby cliff for the animals to clean up, collected my arrows, grabbed the leopard skin and the deer, and rode home. Back at the village, everyone crowded around me. Did you catch them? Su Jiang asked anxiously. Caught them. Beat them up. Got everything back? I said calmly. They stared in disbelief. 1 against 7, and I'd returned without a scratch. If they knew I'd actually killed all 7, they'd have fainted. I checked on my brothers. All 3 were awake, bandaged up, sitting by the door. Qinshu stood up painfully. Sorry, Brother Chun. We lost the fight. We let you down. They outnumbered you, and you've only been training your bodies, not fighting techniques yet. It's normal, I said. But privately, I decided to accelerate their combat training immediately. Xiaobai noticed the 1,000 pounds of salt on the cart and asked what it was for. Qinshu shot him a look. Does Brother Qin need to explain everything to you? Just follow orders. Xiaobai shut up fast. I turned to Su Jiang. Uncle Su, there's something I'd like to discuss with you. Just tell me, Su Jiang said with a smile. Starting tomorrow, I'm buying firewood and grass from anyone who'll sell. 30 coins per bundle of firewood, 15 for grass. I also need 10 women workers each day at 20 coins per person. They'll tend fires and boil salt water. The village erupted with excitement. In these desperate times, I was offering steady paid work. Su Jiang could barely contain himself. You're trying to make the whole village rich. I can't promise riches, I said. But there's money to be made. Daily pay, never late. The news spread through the village within minutes. Everyone was buzzing. That evening after dinner, I gathered my 3 brothers and Qingwan around the table by lamplight. Their faces were tense. They knew something important was coming. I'm going to produce refined salt and sell it, I said. I explained that Qingwan knew the process and would teach them, but the method was an absolute secret. Not even family could know. After today's fight, I had no doubts about their loyalty. They'd bled for me. They'd earned my trust completely. Chinxiu, you're in charge of tomorrow's operations. Go home tonight and plan everything. Who handles the firewood? Who manages the workers? Who tracks the money? I'll have a written plan for you by morning, he said firmly. This kid had the mind of both a commander and a strategist. Then I told Xiaobai to stay behind. I was finally going to teach him the compound pulley crossbow. He nearly fell off his stool with excitement. Dashi looked worried he'd been left out, so I told him his time was coming. We'd be smelting iron and forging weapons soon. His face split into the biggest grin. Once the others left, I walked Xiaobai through the principles. The moment he understood the 3-string calibration concept, everything clicked. How did you figure this out? He asked, amazed. Came to me in a dream, I said. Did the god of carpentry visit you? He was completely serious. I told him to take whatever materials he needed and build several crossbows, one for each of us. All finished weapons would be stored at my house, and the technique was never to be shared. After Xiaobai left, I started building something different, a small hand crossbow for Qingwan. Same pulley principle, auto-loading feature, but compact. Effective range of only 30 paces, but enough to punch through a person at close distance. What are you making? Qingwan asked, bringing me water while cradling the sleeping tiger cub. After what happened today, you need a weapon. I'm making you a hand crossbow to carry at all times. She tried to refuse, but I was firm. I can't always be by your side. In this world, you have to be able to protect yourself. She bit her lip and agreed reluctantly. I worked until deep into the night. When I finally stepped out of the workshop, I expected to find Qingwan asleep. Instead, she was sitting in the lamplight at a spinning wheel, working thread. The tiger cub slept in its little nest at her feet. In that warm glow, wearing her simple clothes with no ornaments in her hair, she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I stood there, completely lost in the sight of her. Standing there watching Qingwan spin thread by lamplight, I realized something. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I was actually enjoying life. My previous existence was nothing but war, then business. I never even married. Now I had a home, people who depended on me, and someone who waited up for me at night. She noticed me staring and smiled. What is it? I looked at her spinning wheel, an ancient single spindle model, horribly inefficient. My engineering background screamed at me to redesign it. I'll upgrade this for you sometime, I said. You can do that too? She gazed at me like I was some kind of god. I laughed, then put my arm around her shoulder. Time for bed. She squirmed. It's my time of the month, I sighed. But then, after we lay down, a soft hand crept under my blanket. I can't do everything, she whispered, face burning, but I can still. I'll spare the details. The next morning I woke up feeling incredible. Whatever happened during my transmigration, my energy was bottomless. Hunting, killing, working all day, being with Qingwan every night, and I only felt stronger. Without her nightly help, I honestly felt like I might burst. My 3 brothers showed up at dawn despite their injuries, ready to train. I admired their toughness and took them up the mountain, adjusting the workout to avoid stressing their wounds. After the run, I taught them hand-to-hand combat. I started with Dashi, the strongest of them, and threw him around like a rag doll using wrestling techniques. The others watched in stunned silence. How are you doing that? Xiaobai gasped. He can't even use his strength against you. It's called bridge wrestling, I explained. Builds flexibility, strength, and technique all at once. I let each of them experience being tossed around. By the end, Dashi and Qinshu were covered in fresh bruises on top of yesterday's. Over breakfast, Qinshu handed me his written operations plan for the salt business. Detailed, organized, with every person's role clearly assigned. Impressive work. Your pay is 50 coins per day, meals included, I told the three of them. They were floored. 50 coins daily was enormous. That came to about 1.5 taels of silver per month, when most families earned 5 taels in an entire year. They tried to refuse, but I shut that down. No arguments. I also told Qinshu to bring his little sister Chini to work alongside Qingwan on the final salt processing step, at the same wage as the other women workers. His eyes went red. She was just a 12-year-old child, and I was paying her full wages. Yes, Brother Chun, he said, wiping his eyes hard. Then the women arrived, and it was chaos. Word had spread that I was hiring 10 workers at 20 coins per day. Every woman in the village stampeded toward my house like it was a Black Friday sale, screaming and waving their arms, terrified of missing out. Qingwan tugged my sleeve nervously. If you only pick 10, won't the rest cause trouble? Let's see how Qinshu handles it, I said with a smile. A true leader needs to identify talent, develop it, and give people room to prove themselves. This was Qinshu's test. Qinshu handled the crowd of women perfectly. He stood behind a table, calm as stone, and called out, "Everyone gets a turn. Register your names, form groups of 10, and rotate daily. Anyone who pushes or causes trouble loses their spot permanently." The chaos stopped instantly. Over 100 women lined up and registered within minutes. He organized them into rotating groups so everyone earned money fairly. Each group worked one day, then the next group took over. Qingwan watched, impressed. "He's really talented," she said. Then we fired up 5 large stoves in the yard. Each stove had 2 women, one feeding the fire, one boiling salt water. Xiaobai measured out the coarse salt precisely according to Qingwan's ratios. Once the brine was boiled twice, the workers carried it in wooden buckets to the small storeroom. Inside that room, strictly off-limits to everyone else, Qingwan and little Chini handled the secret steps, adding the wood-ash solution and filtering. Qingwan had practiced several times on her own and was now producing salt nearly as good as mine. She'd even pre-measured the ash into individual packets for efficiency. Smart girl. Dashi hauled buckets back and forth. Qinshu ran everything else, buying firewood, paying workers, keeping records, supervising the boiling. The kid was stretched thin but never lost control. I paid 30 coins per bundle of firewood and 15 per bundle of grass, cash on delivery. Qinshu was strict about quality. Everything had to be dry and full weight. The villagers understood, and nobody tried to cheat. By noon, even Zhou Jiao came running in with a bundle of grass, thrilled to earn 15 coins. She and her mother Wang Kaifeng immediately rushed out to cut more. While things ran smoothly, I fed the deer herd, mixed deer blood into small jars of liquor for medicinal use, and finished building Qingwan's hand crossbow. The first batch of refined salt came out beautifully. I praised Qingwan and Chini, and they beamed with pride. At dinner time, I stepped outside and called to the working women. "Everyone come eat." They stared at me in shock. "You're feeding us too? 20 coins a day plus 1 meal. Just rice and vegetables, nothing fancy." The place erupted. In these times, having work and a free meal was beyond anyone's dreams. One bold woman laughed. "You're too good to us. We've all got buns to share too. Come take a bite anytime." The others howled, eyeing me hungrily. I retreated fast. I could face bandits and wild boars, but a mob of flirtatious village women was too much. The women watching from outside the wall looked ready to die of jealousy, counting the days until their group's turn. But just as everyone sat down to eat, a commotion broke out at the firewood station. Qinshu was pointing at an open bundle of wood, furious. "Brother Zhou, this isn't right. You hid rocks inside the firewood to cheat the weight? That's flat-out fraud." The cheater turned out to be a scrawny man named Zhou San. Qinshu had caught him stuffing rocks into his firewood bundles to add weight. The first time, I told Qinshu to let it slide. But Zhou San did it again. Half the bundle was stones. Qinshu handled it well. He made Zhou San return the money from the first bundle and rejected both new ones. Zhou San whined and begged, but Qinshu stood firm, backed up by Dashi cracking his knuckles nearby. Zhou San finally slapped his coins on the table and left with a poisonous look in his eyes. One rotten apple in every barrel. We moved on. The women workers were incredible. With good food and fair pay motivating them, they burned through 500 pounds of coarse salt in a single day. At this rate, we'd finish all 1,000 pounds in 2 days, ahead of schedule. That evening, Qingwan counted the output. 120 pounds and 7 ounces of refined salt today. If we kept this ratio, the full 1,000 pounds of coarse salt would yield over 240 pounds of refined salt. We only owed Lin Linger 200 pounds, meaning we'd keep 40 plus pounds for ourselves. At 5 taels per pound, that was 1,000 taels of silver coming in. Qingwan's eyes practically turned to gold coins. Everyone had their evening tasks. Qingwan spun thread with Chinny helping. Qinshu worked on the accounts. Dashi was outside smashing old broken swords and knives into tiny pieces with a stone pestle. I told him to crush them as fine as possible. He didn't know why, but he swung that hammer happily. Xiaobai sat in the workshop while I walked him through assembling his crossbow, correcting each mistake. The next day, same routine, training, salt production, buying firewood. The whole village was buzzing with energy and income. Everyone except Zhou-san. He skulked around the village, bitter and hungry, cursing me under his breath for cutting him off over a couple of rocks. Then 2 strangers rode into the village, men from White Sand Village looking for Wu Tian and his gang, who'd been missing for 2 days. Zhou-san's eyes lit up with malice. He saw his chance for revenge. Wu Tian? Yeah, I saw them, he said, his rotten mind churning. They came here, got into a fight with someone. Then that someone chased after them with a bow and arrows. Whether he killed them, I couldn't say. The 2 men leaned in, eyes hard. Who chased them? Him. Li Chun. Lives up there on the hill. Zhou-san pointed toward my house, his eyes full of spite. The 2 strangers rode up, an old man named Wu Chongqing, a clan elder from White Sand Village, and a one-armed man named Ma Wu, their village chief. Wu Chongqing's eyes were murderous. My brothers sensed danger immediately. Without a word, Qinshu stood up slowly. Dashi set down his salt bucket and gripped a thick wooden staff. Xiaobai's hand slid under his workbench to the crossbow he'd built, silently pulling the string taut. They all knew what I'd done to those 7 thugs. I'd come back that day without a scratch, but radiating killing intent so thick even the other villagers had felt it. Now White Sand Village had come looking. My brothers were ready. If it came to a fight, they'd follow me without hesitation. Are you Li Chun? The old man barked. What did you do to our 7 young men? I don't know what you're talking about, I said calmly, signaling my brothers behind my back to stand down. Don't play dumb. Someone from your village told us you chased our boys with a bow. Give them back or we'll tear you apart. Elder, I respect your age, I said quietly. But don't mistake my youth for weakness, and don't throw false accusations. Whoever told you that, bring them here. Let them say it to my face. I let my eyes go cold. Not full force, just enough. Wu Chongqing's whole body shuddered. He staggered back a step, teeth chattering, unable to meet my gaze. Whatever he saw in my eyes, it wasn't a 19-year-old boy. Ma Wu stared at me in shock. He could feel it too, a pressure rolling off me like a tidal wave, something that made him want to look away. Ma Wu went to fetch the informant and found Zhou-san lurking behind a tree, watching the show. He dragged the little weasel over by the scruff of his neck. Oh, it's you, I said, looking at Zhou-san. My gaze passed over him like a blade across his throat. He started trembling uncontrollably. He could feel it in his bones. If he spoke against me, I would kill him. He was starting to regret coming. But then he looked at my yard. The workers, the stacked firewood, the bustling operation, and jealousy burned away his fear. He remembered being humiliated over those rocks in the firewood. He gritted his teeth, pointed straight at me, and screamed. Yes, it was him. I saw him ride after them with a bow. He killed your people. Call the authorities. Arrest this murderer. Dead silence. Dashi exploded from the yard, cursing. You backstabbing maggot. How dare you lie about Brother Chun? Qinshu stared at Zhou-san with eyes like black ice. Xiaobai gripped his crossbow so hard his knuckles went white, fighting the urge to put a bolt through the traitor's chest. The witness is right here. What do you have to say? Wu Chongqing roared, pointing at Zhou-san. I just raised an eyebrow. He says I killed them, so it must be true. The old man drew a long blade from his saddle. Surrender now, or I'll cut you down where you stand. I didn't even glance at his sword. You have your witness. I have mine. Qinshu. Qinshu stepped forward without hesitation. Wu Tian and his gang came here and tried to rob us. Our villagers chased them off. Brother Qin was in town that day and came home late. He never saw them. Dashi and Xiaobai stood up beside him. That's exactly what happened. Then Qingwan rushed over and grabbed my arm. My husband was home all evening. He never left. He never saw any Wu Tian. I almost laughed. My sweet, honest little wife was lying through her teeth for me without blinking. Qinshu turned to the working women. Why don't you ask the rest of the village? That was all it took. Dozens of women surged forward like a flood, surrounding the two strangers with a wall of righteous fury. How dare you accuse our Li Chun? We were all here helping him that day. He never left. That Zhou-san is a cheat who got caught stuffing rocks in his firewood. He's just taking revenge. Old man, you believe that little weasel? Did you leave your brain at home? The verbal assault was devastating. Wu Changqing turned purple. Even Ma Wu was sweating under the barrage. I noticed Dashi and Xiao Bai giving Qinshu secret thumbs-ups. The kid had mobilized an entire village in seconds. Born political officer material. Then village chief Su Jiang arrived, carrying firewood. Ma Wu grabbed onto him like a drowning man. He explained the situation fairly, just the facts, no bias either way. That objectivity actually impressed me. But before Su Jiang could even think, Qinshu jumped in smoothly. Uncle Su, we've already explained everything. Zhou-san is just making false accusations because he got kicked out for cheating this morning. The hint was seamless. Su Jiang caught on instantly. Oh, that business? Of course I can vouch for Li Chun. He was right here with us, unloading his cart. Never went anywhere. He turned to the other men. You boys can confirm, right? Absolutely. He was with us the whole time. Nobody saw him leave. I kept my face blank, but inside I was torn between laughter and genuine emotion. The entire village was committing perjury for me without a moment's hesitation. Wu Changqing snarled at Su Jiang about responsibility, but Su Jiang's face went cold. I'm the village chief of Muir Village. I don't need outsiders telling me how to do my job. Ma Wu, clearly the smarter of the two, bowed apologetically. This was clearly a misunderstanding. We're sorry for the trouble. Safe travels, I said flatly. Wu Changqing climbed onto his horse and pointed his whip at me, about to make a threat. But Xiaobai flicked a sharp pebble at the horse's rear. The animal screamed and bolted downhill, bouncing the old man around until he flew off and tumbled down the slope. Good riddance, you old fart, Xiaobai cackled. Ma Wu rushed after his companion, and the whole village erupted in laughter that echoed through the mountains. Zhou-san slipped away during the commotion, crawling through the trees like a rat. Smart move. He knew if he stayed, I'd deal with him. But I signaled Qinshu not to chase. Not yet. Su Jiang cursed Zhou-san's name. That scum has always been trouble, stealing, even tried to assault a widow once. And now this betrayal. I raised my hands and bowed to everyone. I owe you all. Thank you. Xingwan bowed too, tears streaming. Thank you for protecting my husband. The villagers wouldn't hear it. You saved our lives. You're feeding our families. Even if you did kill those thugs, they deserved it. You're the heart of this village. We'll protect you no matter what, Xingwan cried harder. I felt something deep stir inside me. This was what winning hearts truly meant. Treat people right, and they'll lay down their lives for you. Su Jiang laughed. Even if White Sand Village brings the whole county government, nobody here saw anything. Right? Right. The whole village roared. Qinshu watched me with shining eyes, then whispered to Dashi and Xiaobai. This is what spending money to win loyalty really looks like. Learn from Brother Chun. I thumped my chest with my fist. If Muir Village ever faces danger, I'll repay this debt with my life. Then I announced another feast for the entire village that afternoon. Meat, wine, and steamed buns. Su Jiang tried to refuse, but I insisted. Ma Lian, leaning over the wall as usual, offered her buns again. I covered my eyes. Your husband would kill me. Everyone roared with laughter. I'm going hunting for more game, I announced, grabbing my weapons. But we have meat at home, Dashi started. Shut up, you idiot, Xiaobai hissed. I walked down the path in plain sight. But the moment I rounded a corner out of view, I cut through the bushes and climbed up the mountain, tracking Zhou-san's trail. Following a common man through the woods was child's play for me. Zhou-san had no survival skills, and he was weak from years of poor eating. He couldn't have gone far. I tracked him easily, even pausing to shoot a few birds along the way. I found him sitting against a pine tree, panting, fanning himself, muttering curses. Just wait, Li Chun. I'll go to White Sand Village and tell the Wu family you murdered their boys. They've got relatives in the county government. They'll throw you in prison and have you executed. I stepped up behind him. Zhou-san, he jumped to his feet and spun around. The bowstring sang. The arrow punched through his forehead and out the back of his skull. He was dead before he hit the ground. After dealing with Zhou-san, I got lucky in the forest. 2 roe deer were drinking at a stream. I shot one, and the other ran off, but then came back to stare at me with the dumbest expression I'd ever seen on an animal. I couldn't let that level of stupidity go unrewarded, so I took it too. About 130 pounds of meat between them. I rigged a carrying pole and hauled them home, arriving just as the women finished their salt work and started cooking for the village feast. The place was alive with activity. Tables were set up inside and outside the yard. Kids crowded around Chinny, cooing at the tiger cub. Lu Jinsue was helping Qingwan organize the cooking. Chinchi was at his books. Dashi was wrestling a group of teenage boys and winning easily with the techniques I'd taught him. Xiaobai was tucked in a corner, obsessively filing down crossbow parts. Everyone spotted me coming down the mountain with 2 fat deer on my shoulders and erupted in cheers. Mountain God reborn, 2 roe deer. He never comes back empty-handed. Dashi puffed out his chest proudly. My brother Chun is the greatest hunter in the world. No, the greatest man, a woman teased him. Oh yes, especially at the kind of fighting he does without clothes on. But brother Chun doesn't take his clothes off to fight, Dashi said, confused. Everyone howled with laughter while he scratched his head, clueless. I announced both deer would be butchered and shared among every household. The village erupted again with gratitude. What I didn't notice was a quiet conversation happening between Qingwan and Su Xiu'er by the vegetable washing station. Qingwan had always been grateful to Xiu'er. She defended her against bullies, shared food when they were starving, and stood up for her when Zhou Jiao cut her clothes. And Qingwan had noticed what everyone else could see. Xiu'er had feelings for me. Back when I was a worthless troublemaker, her family had forbidden any involvement. Now that I'd changed, it was too late. I was already married. Apparently, Qingwan leaned over and whispered, Xiu'er, do you have anyone you like? Xiu'er turned bright red. Why would you ask something like that? My husband is a good man, Qingwan said quietly. Maybe you should consider him. Xiu'er nearly dropped her vegetables. Are you crazy? What wife offers up her own husband? I mean it. I think he's always had a place for you in his heart, too. But before she could finish, the crowd exploded with cheers as Dashi carried my 2 deer through the gate, and their conversation was cut short. Qingwan smiled at the flustered Xiu'er. Think about what I said. I'm serious. She walked away to chop vegetables, leaving Xiu'er standing there with shaking hands, a red face, and a racing heart. What I didn't see was the conversation continuing between Qingwan and Su Xiu'er's mother, Lu Jinsue. Apparently, Xiu'er was so flustered after Qingwan's suggestion that she couldn't even wash vegetables properly, leaving mud on the leaves, then scrubbing them down to bare stems. Her mother noticed and pulled the truth out of her. When Lu Jinsue heard that Qingwan had offered to share me with Xiu'er, she looked across the yard at my wife. Qingwan caught her eye, gave a small smile and a nod, then went back to work. What a kind-hearted girl, Lu Jinsue sighed. Li Chun is lucky to have her. She asked Xiu'er how she felt about it. Xiu'er's face turned so red it could have lit a fire. She stomped her feet and whined, Mother, but her eyes told the whole story. That girl's heart was practically leaping out of her chest. The only thing is, you'd be the second wife, Lu Jinsue said gently. With someone as good as Qingwan, there'd be no first or second. Xiu'er shot back immediately, then realized what she'd just admitted and fled with a vegetable basin, mortified. Meanwhile, I finally got to sit down. The roe deer were butchered and divided among every household, my way of thanking the village for standing behind me. Su Jiang and the village elders sat with me, worried about the Wu family from White Sand Village. They warned me the Wus were bullies with connections in the county government, and that Wu Chongqing was rumored to be a former bandit who'd once killed a fellow villager and got away with it through his official connections. Don't worry, I said. Without evidence, they can't touch me. And if they try anything in the shadows, well, let's see if they dare. Then dinner began. The whole village sat down together, over 300 people. Men at the front tables, women behind, children crouching in corners with big bowls of rice, meat, and vegetables, their little mouths shining with grease. Su Jiang stood up with a bowl of rice wine. In 2 years of drought, war, and famine, we were staring at death. Then Li Chun turned his life around, and in 5 days we've eaten meat 3 times, drunk wine twice, and found paid work. We're not just surviving anymore. We have a future. So what do we say? Thank you, Brother Chun, 300 voices roared. And whenever Brother Chen needs us, we show up. Su Jiang raised his bowl toward me. To you, Brother Chen. Every man raised his bowl. Even the children lifted their rice bowls. The whole village shouted as one. I stood, lifted my wine, and drained it. We're one family. No need for fancy words. In that moment, something shifted. The village united around a single center, and that center was me. That night, the workshop buzzed with activity. Xiaobai worked on his crossbow beside me, asking questions while I built my own secret project. Out in the main room, Qinshu was teaching Dashi to read, or trying to. The big guy kept falling asleep over his book until Qinshu smacked him with it. Brother Chun says if you can't remember today's characters, no training tomorrow. Dashi snapped awake instantly. Okay, I'll learn. Little Chinny giggled behind her book. Qingwan smiled too, spinning thread with the tiger cub hanging in a cloth pouch against her chest. The little guy still hadn't opened his eyes but had decided she was his mother. Every time he got hungry, he quacked in a way that almost sounded like Mama. Xiaobai finally finished his crossbow and brought it to me. I loaded it, aimed at a coin-sized target 10 paces away, and fired. Dead center. Excellent work, I said. His craftsmanship was now nearly equal to mine. Working together, we could produce 1 compound crossbow per day, but I kept the weapon. When you carry a powerful weapon, the urge to use it follows. Until you can control that impulse. These stay with me. He understood completely. He noticed the pile of mysterious parts I'd been making and asked what they were. You'll see when they're done, I said. I asked him how many villagers had real woodworking skills. He estimated 12 or 13 experts, but if you counted basic ability, nearly 70 or 80 people. Almost the whole village. Most families descended from military carpenters who'd fled here generations ago. The skills have been passed down even without official craftsman status. Make me a list. Rank them by skill level, I said. After midnight, everyone went home. I slept, then woke at dawn for training. This time, after the usual physical conditioning, I introduced short spear combat techniques alongside knife fighting and wrestling. The spear was 5 feet long, shorter than a standard lance, but longer than any sword. In close combat, length wins, I explained. But too long is clumsy. This length is the sweet spot. I demonstrated with a quick feint and thrust. The wooden staff blurred through the air and punched clean through a straw target dummy, sending it flying. That's way faster than a blade, Qinshu gasped. I taught them 8 basic thrusting forms. No fancy moves, just straight-line kills with rear strike counters. They drilled relentlessly. Qingwan practiced with her hand crossbow too, plinking away at a wall target. Her aim was shaky, but consistency would fix that. After lunch, I had the boys keep training and collecting firewood while I hitched 2 horses to the cart. I told them they could ride the spare horses for fun, call it cavalry practice, but to be careful. Dashi let out a war cry, grabbed a spear, mounted a horse, and galloped off like a lunatic. Qinshu cursed after him. I loaded 200 pounds of refined salt onto the cart, keeping the extra 41 pounds hidden at home for personal use. Time to deliver to Lin Linger and collect my payment. But the moment I left the village, I felt it. Someone was watching me. I sensed someone watching me as I left the village, but nothing happened on the road. Strange. In town, I sold my game birds for 3 taels first. Every coin counts. Then I pulled out a small jar of deer blood wine at the restaurant. The owner recognized his own liquor, but froze when he saw the deep red color and smelled the aroma. Is this deer blood wine? Wild deer blood. You know the benefits. His eyes went wild. He offered 1 tael per small jar. I'd bought 10 pounds of plain liquor for 1 tael total, mixed in some deer blood, and now each little jar was worth a tael. 10 times profit. I didn't take the cash though. I traded for 100 pounds of plain liquor instead. Next trip, I'd turn that into 100 taels. The restaurant owner waved goodbye to me from his doorstep like a lovesick maiden. At the salt shop, the round-faced clerk greeted me with suspicious warmth. I noticed the flash of greed in his eyes, but said nothing. Lin Linger came out from the back. No makeup, still stunning, with that cold edge that kept most people at a distance. I have your delivery, I said. Already? It's only been 2 days. I carried both 100-pound salt bags in myself, 1 per hand. She watched me closely. You're remarkably strong. You remind me of someone I once met. Briefly, just used to heavy work, I said, not admitting anything. Ever. Her workers weighed the salt, 200 pounds exactly. They poured it into basins. White as snow, fine as sand, sparkling. The clerk stared at it with naked greed. Lin Linger tasted samples from different bags and nodded firmly. Quality product, honest weight. You're a man of your word. She ordered a banknote for 1,000 taels. But I shook my head. Cash. 900 taels of silver and 100 strings of copper coins. I needed real money for supplies and worker wages. She didn't hesitate. Holding all that silver and copper, I suddenly thought of Qingwan. If I converted everything to copper coins, she'd spend days counting them, and wouldn't be able to hug the pile in her sleep. I have 4 more things to discuss, I said. Go ahead. She led me to the back room. All business on the surface, though I could tell something else was churning underneath. I had 4 things to tell Lin Linger, and I wasn't going to waste time dancing around any of them. First, my name is Li Chun. I live in Muir Village. Now that you know, stop sending people to follow me. Her face went red. She wanted to deny it, but finally just nodded. Second, give me 2,000 pounds of coarse salt. I'll deliver 400 pounds of refined salt in 3 days. She agreed immediately. I could tell she was thrilled. She'd already lined up buyers at 12 taels per pound. Third, I want us to sign an official contract. Things had changed since our first deal. White Sand Village was sniffing around. Joseon had tried to frame me, and I needed legal protection. A formal agreement served both our interests. She was surprised but agreed. We called in a government clerk, filled out the paperwork, stamped it with an official seal, and each kept a copy. Simple and binding. What's the 4th thing? She asked. Your clerk. He's a problem. He's eyeing my salt-making skills. If he partners with the wrong people, bandits, for instance, and they grab me, this business is finished. She was stunned by my bluntness. Then she tried a different angle. Actually, I'd like your recipe too. Name your price. You know what I mean, I said, looking her straight in the eyes. If you have your own plans involving me, tell me up front. Trust is the foundation of profit, and I don't like being used. Give me an answer next time I come. Her face cycled through several colors. She was used to being the smartest person in any room, but I'd read her completely, and she knew it. One more thing, I added. The person who followed me last time, she's skilled. Probably your ace in the hole. Tell her to keep her distance. I'd hate for there to be a misunderstanding. Her jaw dropped. I'd figured out that her tracker was a martial arts expert, and she hadn't told me a thing about it. I pocketed my contract, shouldered my money bags, and walked out. From what I gathered later, Lin Linger went upstairs and smashed several expensive teacups in a rage, cursing me with every word she could think of: arrogant, overbearing, insufferable. She was furious that I'd completely dominated the conversation, leaving her stammering like a schoolgirl. Then her friend Bai Yuxiang climbed through the back window, as usual, and found the wreckage. What happened to you? Bai Yuxiang laughed, pouring herself tea from the only surviving cup. He's going to be the death of me, Lin Linger seethed. And then you show up to make it worse. What I didn't know was that back at the salt shop, Lin Linger and Bai Yuxiang were having quite the conversation about me. Bai Yuxiang had proudly announced she'd successfully tracked me this time and discovered everything, only for Lin Linger to coldly inform her I'd volunteered my name and address myself, and that I'd warned them to stop following me. Lin Linger twisted my words a bit, telling Bai Yuxiang I'd threatened to beat her up if she followed me again. That lit a fire under the warrior woman. No man alive can beat me, she growled. Lin Linger was deliberately provoking her friend, hoping she'd go intimidate me. Clever and petty at the same time. They also discussed the clerk problem. Lin Linger admitted I'd spotted the threat in just 2 visits, and it annoyed her that nothing seemed to escape my notice. Bai Yuxiang said she had a plan but needed my cooperation. On my ride home, I sensed a tale again, but this one was far more skilled than before. Almost certainly Bai Yuxiang herself. I didn't care. Let her watch. Back at the village, I checked the deer herd. They were settling in nicely, even the little ones coming over to nuzzle me. I calculated the deer blood wine production. About 100 pounds of wine every 3 days was the maximum without hurting the animals. Once the herd grew, I could scale up. At home, everyone was busy. Chinchu had stacked the firewood into perfectly geometric piles. That kid's obsession with order was something else. Dashi was smashing rocks for strength training. Xiaobai was building crossbows in the workshop. Qingwan was practicing with her hand crossbow, while Chinny cheered her on. And there was a new addition. Su Xiuer was there too, practicing alongside Qingwan. She was actually better at it. with decent accuracy at 20 paces. But the moment I pulled up with the cart, Xiaoer's mood shifted. She saw me glance at her, just a quick look, and suddenly handed the crossbow back to Qingwan. I should go home, she said quietly, and left before anyone could stop her. Dashi scratched his head. She was happy a second ago. What happened? Qinshu and Xiaobai both kicked him off the cart simultaneously. You idiot, I understood. She was uncertain about where she stood with me. Whatever Qingwan had said to her was clearly weighing on her mind. When Dashi started unloading, he found the money, the salt, the grain, the liquor, and then held up a large iron crucible. Brother Qin, are you getting into blacksmithing? That's my dad's trade. Xiaobai told him to shut up, then screamed even louder when he opened the money bags. He slapped a hand over his own mouth. Salt money, I said simply. Dashi, go get your father. We're going to smelt iron. His jaw dropped. For real, for real. While the boys went to fetch blacksmith Zhao and his equipment, Qingwan tried to play matchmaker for Su Xiaoer again. She listed every one of Xiaoer's qualities. Good with a crossbow, strong, beautiful, hardworking, literate, and doesn't eat much. I stopped her with a look. What are you trying to say? She stammered and retreated to the kitchen. I knew exactly what she was doing, selling me on Xiaoer. Honestly, in this era, having multiple wives was normal, and I could afford it. But in chaotic times, every person you love becomes a weakness. Women, slow down your sword hand. I'd think about it later. Qingwan shuffled away, defeated. I overheard her muttering to herself. Next time, organize your arguments better. Soon Dashi returned with his father, hauling the entire blacksmith setup. Forge, bellows, iron blocks, everything. Blacksmith Zhao was thrilled at the idea of working together. I picked up some techniques from a traveling refugee. I told him, they're different from yours. Let me try while you watch. He agreed, though he had no idea what was coming. First, I coated the inside of my clay crucible with ground ink stick. This would make it heat-resistant and last longer. Zhao stared in confusion. Then I layered Dashi's crushed scrap iron with charcoal and borax, sealed the crucible, and lit the forge. I put the boys on continuous bellows duty, rotating shifts, no breaks even for meals. Zhao kept peeking at the furnace, baffled. He'd never seen anyone resmelt broken weapons, use borax as flux, or any of the steps I was taking. While the iron cooked, I trained the boys. Crossbow marksmanship, hard bow draws, combat techniques, spear thrusting, and three-man tactical formations. Zhao watched with growing unease. This didn't look like hunter training. It looked like elite military drills, but more lethal than anything he'd seen in the army. I opened the crucible twice during the process, skimming slag with a preheated willow stick to reduce sulfur content, then adding crushed walnut shells to boost carbon levels. Zhao thought I was making garbage. Then the molten iron poured out and solidified. His jaw dropped. The metal was purer than anything he'd ever produced. Next came the forging. I used a 9-fold layering technique, sprinkling quartz, sand, and bone powder between each fold. After 10 layers, I buried the blade in hot wood ash for slow cooling. The quenching process was equally complex. First pine resin tung oil, then saltpeter water, then hot coarse salt for a measured duration. By sunset, the blade was finished. It was longer than a standard sword by half a foot, narrower by half an inch, with a deeper curve. The surface showed a pine needle grain pattern that shimmered like wind through a forest. Zhao flicked the blade with his finger. It sang, a clear, ringing tone that lasted and lasted, far longer than any blade he'd ever heard. That meant the steel's toughness, hardness, and flexibility were all extraordinary. Test it, I said. He slashed a forearm-thick wooden pole. It split clean with almost no resistance. Then I struck one of the old broken swords against it. The old blade snapped in half. My blade didn't have a scratch. Everyone stared in stunned silence. This is a divine weapon, someone whispered. I ran my hand along the flat of the blade. This is called the Qi family saber, the finest cold weapon design in history. Everyone stared at the blade in awe. When they tried swinging it, every single person said the same thing. It felt like an extension of their arm. Perfect weight, perfect length, perfect balance. I almost slipped up with the name, Qi family saber, so I quickly changed it.